Hey, everybody. Everybody? Hey, y'all. We're getting ready for the keynote speaker. So if people want to start coming into the room, that would be fabulous. Maybe if somebody wanted to make an announcement outside. Don't close the door yet. Let people through, because right now we don't have that many people. I'm sorry? No. Maybe. I have to be careful. We're live streaming right now, so other people just saw me. Damn. Okay, we're getting close to the keynote. Is there anything I should say to introduce you? What should I say to introduce you? Precisely. Thank you. Okay, everybody, we're getting close. By the way, just in case you are curious, we are now streaming this event on our homepage, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So we're streaming live everywhere. So everybody gets to see all of our fun shenanigans. That time I used shenanigans instead of kerfuffle, because it wasn't really a kerfuffle. And I see our keynote speaker approaching, which will mean we will start to do this thing. I'm going to introduce you briefly. Okay, everybody, we can shut the door now. And hopefully everybody's in here that wants to be in here. Okay, so the next thing we're doing is our keynote speaker. As we mentioned, we've moved that to make sure more people are here for the keynote speaker, because I know everybody wants to see her. This is a woman that needs no introduction. I'm sure you know who she is. However, I will say a couple things about her. She was our vice presidential candidate with Harry Brown in 2000, and our presidential candidate in 2020. She is the first woman that's been on the ballot in all 50 states twice for the Libertarian Party, or for any party. She's the first woman that's done it twice. And I consider her one of my very, very good friends, and I'm very happy that she's here.
Oh, thank you. Good. I'm sorry to intrude on whoever space this is. It's yours? Okay, good. Then I have permission. That's intentional. Yes, I've run for office, but no, I don't need my name up there. So thank you so much for having me. And, you know, I hate thanking anybody because then I got to thank everybody and then people feel left out. But I do have to thank Mimi. I guess I have an excuse. You just introduced me. Mimi called me early to make sure I could come to the convention. So thank you so much. And I will be here for all 4 days. I'm leaving Monday. So if I haven't had a chance to talk with you, just flag me down. So I love old houses. My house is over 100 years old. It's got the push-button light switch plates. In fact, I told the realtor that was the one requirement. And old fireplaces and wood detailed stuff, which is great. One downside, though, of living in these old neighborhoods is these old neighborhoods seem to attract people from the very far left. And that's the case in my neighborhood. Now, usually it's kind of live and let live. I'm kind of the odd person down the road. But last fall, one of my neighbors did something that really put me over the top. While walking my dog around Halloween, I walked by one of my neighbors' homes who had, decorated for Halloween, had tombstones, headstones scattered about his yard. And it was like, rest in peace, like, good thing we got rid of that law, or rest in peace, this city woman or whatever. Now, of course, these aren't laws we would want done away with. There was no mystery as to which quadrant the owners of this house fell into. So, world's smallest political quiz. So I'm, tolerating it until I get to one of the last ones. And I stopped dead in my tracks, no pun intended. I would just show you. Rest in peace. Anti-vax. She did her own research. Okay, I'm taking names of anybody who laughed. I get it. But I was shocked at the callousness that he's talking, or they're talking about people who have lost their lives. They have died because of an epidemic. And they're going after them because, they did their own research. When did something like that become acceptable? And more to the point, how did it become acceptable? As soon as I saw that headstone, I immediately thought of what it was like many years ago when I was younger and shortly after. Now, yes, there are a few glaring exceptions, but people tended to be more tolerant of others' choices, such as smoking. Imagine if 40 years ago, you put this on your front lawn. Will inhale. Guess he didn't read the Surgeon General's report. Imagine making a political statement about smoking by mocking the death of smokers. And let me point out, I am a non-smoker. In fact, I've never smoked a single cigarette in my life. But back in those days, you could be a non-smoker and get along with other non-smokers, and you were called a non-smoker. Now you're called an anti-smoker. Now you're called anti-vax. Forget the fact that you're already vaccinated, you're still anti-vax. While I was on the campaign trail, I got asked a lot, why do you think we're so divided? Our country? Is it because our government is so corrupt? And my immediate answer is no. We had a very corrupt Congress in the 1930s and 1940s. But the thing is nobody cared about it because not everything went through the government. We could, for the most part, not 100%, but for the most part, choose health care, education, or retirement to more of a degree than we do now. So now what we have is, let's say you want prayer in your school and your neighbor doesn't. It's up for a vote. You got to support your candidate, give money, get all your friends to vote and vote. Meanwhile, your neighbor gets all of his or her friends together, donates money, puts out campaign signs. And then on election day, one of you is going to win and one of you is going to lose. And what we end up with is a one-size-fits-all that fits no one. and we end up with resentment and voter apathy. If we make every personal choice a matter of public policy, like smoking or getting vaccinated, or which stove you're allowed to buy, then what we end up with in our country is winners and losers in every aspect of our lives. And eventually, people are going to think that they have no choice but to make enemies of the people who are against them, of people who disagree with them. And not against is really too strong of a word, but simply people they disagree with, such as you decide to get vaxxed, your neighbor doesn't. You decide to smoke, your neighbor doesn't. For a while there in the campaign, I thought it couldn't possibly get any worse. And then it did. At least before, we could elect people to school boards who would make decisions, elect representatives, our so-called representatives, but now we're getting edicts from the White House. We're getting edicts from on high on what to do. So no longer are you just in battle with your neighbor to put somebody in to make decisions for you. Now, as many of you probably know, I teach at Clemson University. So today you're going to get 2 talks for the price of 1. You're going to get a politics talk, political talk, and a psychology talk. Because what I want to do is look at what are some of the reasons that this is happening. And not to worry, no pop quiz. So how do we explain the anger and the resentment and the politicians digging in their heels? First, does anybody remember Pmrc, Parents Music Resource Center? I'm surprised some of you younger people are nodding your heads, but even if you're too young to remember it, I know you've seen the outcome of it. So what happened in 1985 was the Washington wives got together and they decided that they just didn't like the music that our kids were listening to. You know, again, we don't leave stuff like child rearing up to the parents, right? And notice these are Washington wives. They weren't elected. We're talking about like the wife of then Senator Al Gore, who later became vice president. They held a Senate hearing, which was rather amusing to watch because you've got Tipper Gore and all these other straight-laced people. You've got the senators all in their suits. And then you've got Dee Snider. Do y'all know who Dee Snider is? Twisted Sister, the hair, the makeup, right? Although he did tone down the makeup. Frank Zappa, I knew it'd come to me, Frank Zappa. And here they were debating this, and the musicians were saying, you know what, we have the right to do whatever kind of music we want. If you don't like it, just don't buy it. You know, very simple, just don't buy it. Well, they came to an agreement where they put these little black stickers on what used to be CDs. Now they use it somewhat, at least online, telling you, you know, bad. And they've only got 1 sticker, but basically we're talking sex, violence, and ooh, naughty words, right? Okay, so now they're putting little stickers on music that teenagers buy. What do you think they're gonna wanna do? Run out and buy the stuff with the stickers. Like, you know, if it wasn't attractive before, it certainly is attractive now. So in psychology, here comes the lesson, but again, no pop quiz. We call this reactants theory. It's a little bit like reverse psychology. So typically what happens when you have choices taken away from you, you have 3 reactions. First, you want that item more. Just look at the kids who went on the buying frenzy. Second, you try to reclaim the lost freedom. And third, especially if you're unsuccessful, it can turn to anger and resentment. And that's what we're seeing now. People are very angry and resentful. Look at the truckers, the truck drivers up there, and the force now that's being used against them. There's just so much anger. Thanks to the masks, thanks to the mandates, and thanks to the shutdowns. Now, I can also explain the stubbornness of the politicians through a different concept in psychology. 1954, there was a cult. And it was run by a woman in Michigan, a housewife, And a couple of psychologists infiltrated the cult because they had a really strange prediction that nobody else thought. What happened was she said, well, the world's going to come to an end on December 21st, but if you simply turn in all your money, turn over your house, turn over your life savings, you can be saved by the spaceship that's going to come around on midnight on December 21st. It's now 2022. We know the world has not come to an end. The spaceship was not needed. Now, everybody that predicted, looked at it, said, well, of course, when the spaceship doesn't show up, they're all going to go, this is a bunch of hooey, we're going to go home. A psychologist, sorry, I have to throw in a name, Leon Festinger, predicted otherwise. He said, no, the people who are invested in the cult, they're going to be even more committed to the cult. And that's exactly what happened. And if you're sitting here thinking, you know, I'm kind of too smart for that. One of her right-hand people was a medical doctor. So she had people with money going in on this. By the way, anybody want to guess as to what excuse she gave for the reason that there was no spaceship showing up? Science had changed. That's very good, very good. I like that one. Yeah. No, what she said at about 5 o'clock that morning is, thanks to your impressive faith, thanks to all the money you turned over, we averted the disaster completely. We didn't even need the spaceship. Now, the funniest, if you can use that word, I don't know that that's a good word, the funniest part about this is her husband was a very nuts and bolts guy. He was like the distribution manager of some factory warehouse or something, very, numbers oriented. And so he told his wife, yeah, I'm going to bed, wake me up when the spaceship comes. He was going to have none of that. So let's relate that to the politicians. What's going on, and by the way, the definition of cognitive dissonance, which is what Festinger came up with, is that it's too painful to basically think of yourself as a hypocrite. You know, you give all this money and then the spaceship doesn't show up. And we don't like being hypocrites. So what's going on with our politicians? You know, they're very slow to get rid of the masks, and many of them are still saying, well, thank goodness we had the masks. You know, kind of like, thank goodness you gave us all of your money, we didn't need the spaceship. So we can see through psychology that now we've got this endless loop going on where people are digging their heels in because of reactance theory, and then you've got the politicians saying, oh, no, we're not wrong. we're going to show you that you're right, or that we're right. All of the nastiness that people see today in politics comes from anti-libertarians. It comes from people who say, I know better than you what's good for you. Because you belong to a different group, there's something wrong with you. And they say, you know, because your worldview doesn't match mine, you're worthy of ridicule. Hence, we see, well, that's my headstone that I made, but we see the other headstone. The libertarian view rejects all of these prevalent toxic notions. Many of us, and I know I'm not the only one in this room, have been called selfish, have been called uncompassionate, that we don't care for others. I suggest they're the ones who are mean. They're the ones who are nasty and selfish. The fact that you're going to take thousands of deaths, hundreds, 100,000, whatever, and ridicule the people who died. How about letting people make choices? Like we used to let people smoke, and if they died and they had cancer, we said, gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Today, we have the chance to remind people that liberty isn't just don't tell me what to do. Instead, it's, I wouldn't dream of telling you what to do. We're the compassionate ones. Thanks so much. I don't know where the TJ or the Masters of Sarah, I don't know if I have time for questions or not. It looks like everybody went on coffee break at the same time. I guess I got the floor to myself, right? Okay, anybody got a question? Oh, Mimi, there you are. Okay. Just yell when it's time. Okay. Since I'm a teacher, I'm very good at seeing stuff in the back of the class. Any questions? I mean, all this and then you don't have a question. Yes. Oh, you're second.
Okay, good. So what would you say was the most hopeful thing that you saw as you were running for president and then afterwards? Like, you know, what would you say is, like, gives you space for optimism? And are you mostly optimistic or not?
Oh, I'm very optimistic. I think you do have to be optimistic to run for office. I would suggest starting with the results, and a lot of people don't realize this. We beat Gary Johnson's first run, which might not sound like much, but he was a two-term governor. And everybody kept saying for years, we need somebody with name recognition. Nobody knew my name outside of my students, nobody. And yet we were able to beat Gary Johnson's numbers. And I think that's hopeful, and that's in a pandemic when we couldn't shake as many hands as would have been nice. Thanks. Oh, you were the one back there, right? I didn't want anybody cutting in front of you, okay.
So what do you think we need to do to attract younger people to the Libertarian Party?
Oh, people are gonna think I planted you in the audience, but I didn't. So Tara DeSisto at headquarters, if any of you don't know who she is, I keep saying when I grew up, I wanna be just like her. She's a very no-nonsense, gets it done woman. And Jim Lark, many of you may know from the LNC, he's been around forever. Those two pretty much masterminded it, but I'm on the board. We have just started a new group called the Association of Libertarian Educators, and we're having our first conference in Boston at the end of March. Now, it is just for educators this time around, but we're gonna put our heads together and figure out how can we get them at an earlier time. Because right now, it's just so frustrating that pretty much 90% of the indoctrination is from the left. And I have had students who know that I run, but I hope there's time. Let me tell you kind of a funny story if I didn't tell you guys this last year. So this is me in costume. In my real life, I don't wear makeup. I put my hair in a ponytail and I wear Birkenstocks with like long cotton dresses, okay? And so I had one student in an online class she typed hashtag Joe20. And I said, yeah, thanks. We don't talk about politics in this class. And she typed back, yeah, I thought it was a really big coincidence that you look like that lady. And then I realized it was you. But here's the thing. I have had students ask me, so aren't you going to tell us about your presidential run? Aren't you going to talk about politics? And I say, no, I'm here to teach psychology. And if I start talking about my pet political beliefs, I'm basically stealing tuition from you and your parents. So the people that need to be indoctrinating won't do it. So I'm hoping with the Libertarian Educators Group, we can start reaching people at a younger level. Now that's just college, but it's a start, Yes?
So, hi, I'm actually part of the Libertarian Youth Caucus, which is getting a lot of youth into the Libertarian Party. And something that I think is that our school system is broken. We're not learning the things that we should supposed to be learning, as in like home ed and kitchens and how to do taxes and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I was wondering, how do you think we can improve our school system and to learn the things that we're supposed to learn, that we need to learn?
So could you repeat your question?
How do you think we can fix the school system to learn the things that we should be learning?
You don't. You overthrow them.
Amen. Amen, sister.
If elections were going to do it, we would have won it by now. We got to get this notion out of our head that we're going to do anything by committee, anything through elections. Did you know that Brexit, from the time that they first started to the time they had their vote, was 6 weeks? We don't have time to get elected to Congress and school board. And the movement is starting. And one thing I kept saying to some people is somebody needs to jump in front of this. And I know it's like somebody, you know, like everybody else's time, and I don't, but I am doing the educators. But yeah, that was a perfect movement to get in front of, and we need to be more visible with that, because we're the original pro-parent, pro-teacher, pro-student making their own choices. So that's the only way. Hey.
Joe, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good, a great speech. I really enjoyed hearing you speak. I wanted to start by thanking you for all of your hard work with your organizations that you set up post-election.
Oh, thanks.
Obviously, People for Liberty, the Educators Association, et cetera, like that.
And thank you for all your hard work.
That's very kind, thank you. But my question is kind of centered around that, right? You are really kind of our I wouldn't say the first, but at least in the recent history, the first presidential candidate that has really taken her gestalt and been able to transform it into organizations that support the movement. And I wanted the opportunity to thank you for that. But I wanted to hear kind of your philosophy behind why that decision was made. Maybe you can share that with the crowd so that they might be inspired to do something similar.
Of why what?
Of why you took your effort from your presidential campaign and curtailed it into organizations that have spun off to do education, et cetera.
Well, thank you for that, but I don't deserve the credit. Steve Dasbach does. And I guess I've had a lot of people say, wow, you're so good at unity. You know, maybe you should do this and this and this. And it's like, yeah, sorry, I can't claim credit. That was Steve. I don't know if you know this, but we had Jake Porter, who was Jacob's campaign manager. He was on our staff. Seth Levy, who was Judge Gray's campaign manager, on our staff. And we had probably, okay, Steve, I see you just walked in the room. What percentage of people in the original Facebook, like following the nomination, were from Vermon's camp? Yeah, I mean, because Vermin was very good with the internet. He was very good at having this organic following. So a lot of them came over to our campaign. So I know we had more Vermin people on our, social media than our own. So basically, Steve just did a good job of putting everybody together, which I'm not sure I could have negotiated that. So, but I think that's one reason the campaign went well. Okay. Oh, thank you so much for having me. I will be at the banquet tonight, and as I said, I'll be here till Monday, so I'd love to talk to you if you have any questions one-on-one. So, and thanks again, Mimi.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. That was really good, and I'm glad that you can see the students in the back of the class. Okay, so now we're going to continue with business, but I am going to do one other quick announcement now, and then I'm going to ask somebody to come up for about 10-ish minutes, and I hope she's in the room right now. So this year, our Activist of the Year award is going to be going to Angela McCardle. And she will be presented with that, and the full presentation will be tonight at the banquet for those that are there. But at this time, I'd like to ask her up here to speak for a few minutes about what's going on in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, with the initiative to overturn the vax mandates. So, no, up here, not there. congratulate her again for Activist of the Year. She will be presented with her whole thing tonight at the banquet.
Thank you, guys. I want to take a few minutes to tell you about what we did, why we did it, and how we did it. I really do believe very strongly, and I know that a lot of you agree with me, that local issue campaigns, grassroots-led organizing, and just boots-on-the-ground activism is the future of politics. And I do believe that politics are changing right now, and they're changing at a very rapid pace, similar to the way that we've seen changes happen in technology, in entertainment, in music, and in social media. And what I mean by that is that large conglomerates no longer please people. They want more options. And so they fracture and destabilize, and they blow apart, and it's a little bit chaotic, and eventually they reorganize. And I believe we're seeing the same thing happen in politics right now. And we're poised at an incredible opportunity to really come out on the top of the political arena if we can understand what people want and meet their needs. And right now, what people are asking for is they are desperate for liberty and some guidance out of this political wilderness and this totalitarian collapse that we're all experiencing. And so what we've done in the city of LA is we have simply met the needs of liberty-minded people. And this is how it started. In August of last year, the City Council of LA announced that they were looking into implementing a vaccine mandate system. So what we did is I had all of my guys line up on public comment and start giving public comment. And Dan Welby, if he's in this room, has been someone who has really helped to spearhead this. And so has Sean Osborne, who is sitting over next to the against mic. Dan and Sean have been absolutely on fire at public comment. So here's how this works, and I recommend that you all adopt this in your city and your county level activism, because this is definitely a way to get yourself on the map. Whenever there is a grievance and a real pain point for the people in your city, you call in and you utilize public comment as though it's a free airtime for you. So we call in and I say, hi, my name is Angela McArdle. I'm the chair of the Los Angeles Libertarian Party. We oppose vaccine mandates because we believe they're a gross violation of your constitutional rights and your natural right to bodily autonomy. We welcome anyone to work with us of any political spectrum if you oppose these mandates. This is a single issue coalition. We're going to lead the charge, and you're all invited to join us. Contact me at lplac.us. Just treat it like a commercial, seriously. And we would line up one by one by one. All three of us, sometimes more of us, sometimes Rachel would help. And every time that we would do that, in the beginning, I would get about 30 interactions from the public. People would Google us, they would call us, they would go to the website, and they would just, sometimes frankly, just burst into tears because no one else was advocating for them and no one else was helping them, and maybe they were progressives and they were just completely alone. So I said, we're going to be filing an initiative, and we started announcing the initiative on City Council Commons. We didn't have to fight with City Council. Plenty of people are doing that, right? We're just like, these are our action items. Join us, get active. And by the time we'd done this for a few weeks in a row, we started having the press reach out to us. I didn't have to send out press releases. We're getting earned media just from our activism. LA Times mentioned us twice, 2 different articles. Local reporters have me on speed dial now. It took quite a bit of time. It took about 2 months to get the initiative approved. But I did draft it, and I passed it around, and we had some proofreading done. We went back and forth with the city elections office, and I think that they were also a little bit in support of it as well. Now, the city attorney is a blood-sucking monster, and he doesn't like what we're doing. But the people who work they're just boots on the ground, just employees in the city office, they don't like this mandate. And so they were pretty friendly with us because they've seen their friends and their family members lose their jobs over it too. So you got to be compassionate with these people, even if they don't seem like they're in alignment with you, because you never know. Sometimes they're just afraid to speak out. So while we did this, we built a website, we started getting everything together, collecting names, spreadsheet, the whole thing, and getting as many people interested as possible. And so now we've got this bank of names and volunteers and people who are willing to go all in once we launch. And then we also connected with some key players from the recall campaign. And we got a lot of lists, you know, Libertarian lists, Republican lists. Another really interesting group that I have been working with are the people who used to be active in Millions Against Monsanto. They're a progressive group that's very interested in natural health and bodily autonomy and knowing what goes into their body. So it's an excellent opportunity to do an issue coalition. It spans across all ideological borders in LA. It's been really phenomenal. So finally, when we did launch, the city sent out a press release and we were mobbed with media attention. For an entire week, we were the center of attention in LA on every local news station. CBS, ABC, NBC, KTLA, Channel 9, KFI, other talk radio shows, we were all over it. Reason Magazine. This is how you get yourself on the map. So now we've got a 120-day period to collect signatures, and we have been working our butts off to get all of the infrastructure that we need in place for the last little bit of organizing. So if you see the petition out there, there's one at the Mises table, and we'll be passing it around in business later this evening and tomorrow. If you live in the city of LA, please go ahead and sign. If you're in LA County or in any adjacent area, please go to medicalfreedomla.com. You can sign up to volunteer with us. You can also download a copy of the petition, and you can download an FAQ guide that explains how to fill it out and where to turn it in. I highly encourage you, get involved in the initiative process, go to school board meetings, speak out against government tyranny, because this is the thing that people, regular, normal people, are fired up and passionate about. And this is also where you're going to find other people who are very interested in doing something about the problem. They're not just going to talk and complain. They're already at these meetings. They are ready to take action. They just need a leader, and that is us. That is the people in this room. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really appreciate it. I want to see us bring liberty to the forefront of the American political landscape, and I really do feel that this is our moment. So let's rally together and get it done.
By the way, what I said about the winner of the Activist Award, I was wrong. Nobody will know who won until the banquet. So just, you know. Anyways, I screwed up. All right, can I get the secretary up here? Does anybody know where our secretary is? Does anybody know where our parliamentarian is? Could somebody grab our secretary? Okay. Because I definitely don't want to say that we're going to stand at ease till we get those people, because everybody will leave and it'll take 20 minutes to get people back in the room. So.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
point of information, can you hear me?
I can.
Do you hear any feedback?
I don't.
Have people been able to see the screens?
I'm sorry?
I'd like to thank James from wherever James is from. For those of you that have been to these things in the past, you can't hear what I'm saying. When you can, there's feedback. You can't see what's on the screen. It has been amazing, and thank you very much, James.
Thank you. That was a good point of information. Okay, it looks like we have everybody back in the room that needs to be in the room. So I am going to call the business portion of the meeting back to order at 2:17. And where we are on the agenda is at the Bylaws Committee report. So momentarily, I will be handing over the mic to the Bylaws Committee Chair, Ms. Nix.
Yes, of course.
Is there, okay, I see somebody at the microphone.
Yes. And Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
there are some really good proposals that are coming out of the Bylaws Committee. I hope everyone will give it their due consideration. I am concerned that we won't get to some items that were submitted independently of the Bylaws Committee, and I'd like to, and I think they're very important too. So I'd like to make a motion this time to suspend the rules to first consider a motion, a bylaw amendment recommendation that was made with advance notice by Brent Olson and myself. And I can describe it if you like.
Can I do one thing real quick that I forgot to do before you actually make your motion? I forgot to have the updated credentials read into the stuff. So let's do that real quick. Okay, so the secretary will give us our updated credentials in the microphone. Sorry.
We have a total of 179 delegates. We need 90 for quorum, 120 for a 2/3 majority, and 18 for a standing second.
Okay, so now that we've done that, Mr. Starr, would you like to continue?
Sure. So Brent Olson and I, who we're not always on the same page, but we both agree that we do have a problem that we created at the last convention where we could amend bylaws with just a majority vote. Now, thankfully, at this convention so far, the bylaw proposals we've done have been adopted by, in some cases, over 3/4 vote. And that's good. You don't want to have your governing documents, like your Constitution, change with just a simple majority vote. So this proposal that we've submitted will basically change it so that it takes a 2/3 vote, and if it's an item without notice, it takes a 3/4 vote. So all of these proposals would, I think, are very good. I think we can pass them, but I think it's really important that we not make motions to change bylaws based on just the whim of the majority at any given time. So that's what we're proposing. I'd like to suspend the rules to debate this item at this time for everyone's consideration. And if you agree with me and Brent, then please vote for it. And if you disagree, please vote against it. Thank you.
Okay, so first things first, this is going to be a two-part thing. You're making a motion to suspend the rules to consider a bylaws amendment, which was made with the notice. However, it takes a 2/3 to consider it. So, because it would be a 2/3 to suspend the rules to consider it, because we're hearing this now before the committee report as opposed to after. Okay, is there a standing second? It needs, what was it? 19 people? 18 people to stand? Okay, we've got more than 18 people standing, and everybody standing was standing the second, right? Okay, cool. All right, we've got 18 people that stood. This part of the motion is not debatable. This is a suspension of the rules. All those in favor of suspending the rules to consider this proposal, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion to suspend the rules to consider has passed, so at this point, you have the mic for your second part of this.
Right, and I don't know whether this can be put on the screen or not, but basically what we want to do is we want to change Bylaw 26.
Okay, give me one moment. Can I stop? Okay, it's on the screen.
Okay.
Never mind. This
So
is the
if
one
you-
with
if you can-
advance
if you
notice.
can make
Cool.
If you make, my eyes aren't as young as they used to be. Can you make it like a little bit bigger for everyone to see? I know if I can't see it that well, others can't as well.
They'll help her do that, so give a minute.
I'll read it out loud. Currently, what it says is, except as indicated in a particular bylaw, these bylaws may be amended by a majority vote of all the registered delegates present and voting at a convention with previous notice. I want to change the word majority to 2/3 so that it will read, except as indicated in a particular bylaw, these bylaws may be amended by a 2/3 vote of all the registered delegates present and voting at a convention with previous notice. It goes on. After that, it says, bylaws changes proposed from the convention floor without prior notice or substantive non-technical amendments made to the bylaws committee report by the bylaws committee subsequent to the report adoption deadline shall require a 2/3 vote of the registered delegates present and voting to pass. I want to change 2/3 to 3/4. So that way, and the idea here is that you want people to have advance notice that something is going to happen so that you can get together and come to a convention and say, hey, this is important to me. I want to vote for this. With 2/3 vote, you adopt it. But if something comes up late and you didn't have notice, so it should be a higher threshold. It should be a 3/4 vote because maybe it's really important. We don't want to bar people from making those changes, but let's not make it just something where you can just sneak it in without anybody knowing about it. Which bylaw is this? This is Bylaw 26. So I'll read it as changed. That sentence would say, bylaws changes proposed from the convention floor without prior notice or substantive non-technical amendments made to the bylaws committee report by the bylaws committee subsequent to the report adoption deadline shall require a 3/4 vote of registered delegates present and voting to pass. So we're changing 2/3 to 3/4.
Okay, so that is the motion. The motion has been made, which is up on the screen, to do this amendment. This amendment, because it had advance notice, would only require a majority vote.
So what I'm seeing on the screen isn't my proposal.
No, that's from the...
My proposal was submitted with advance notice. So if we could, let's please put that one on the screen.
Sorry, she put up the wrong thing. It's the one with advance notice. It's on the website as well as, it should have been emailed to you. Okay, perfect. Okay,
All right,
does
great.
everybody,
I have a parliamentary inquiry.
I beg your pardon?
Parliamentary inquiry?
Yes, your
Would a
name?
suspension of the rules be allowed to
One moment.
Sorry.
Could you give your name first?
Yes, Alex Blansky, Los Angeles County.
Thank you.
Would a suspension of the rules be allowed to change that amount of votes at any time? So if we didn't want a third court's vote, we could move to suspend the rules to make it a majority vote or
Can't
harder?
suspend a bylaw.
No.
Oh.
A suspension of the rules requires a 2/3 vote. It's undebatable and it's 2/3 vote. You can do those two different ways. You can do a suspension of the rules to do something or a suspension of the rules to consider something.
Okay.
This was a suspension of the rules to consider something. It required the 2/3 vote, which it got. Now we're at the actual motion being made. And then this particular motion, because it was made with advance notice, only requires a majority vote to
That I
pass.
understand. My question was, with these new rules in place, if we wanted to change the amount of votes needed for another vote for another bylaws change, could we change that for another vote for another bylaw? Change the bylaws that we could.
That would take another bylaw amendment. It
Okay.
can't be a suspension of the rules. Bylaws
Okay.
can't be suspended.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, wait, we're not at no, you can, no, I wasn't telling you to wait. I was telling anybody else to wait for a minute. First things first, we need a standing second of 18 people. Oh, yeah, the motion was made, now we need 18 people to stand up to second it. Then we will go to discussion. Okay, we have more than 18 people standing, so this motion is on the floor. First, the maker of the motion would get 2 minutes to speak to his motion. The timer, if you can start timing the time. Is the timer being timed starting now? Okay, so you get 2 minutes, and then if you're against it, go over to that microphone. If you're for it, go to this microphone. Yes, sir.
I think it's a very simple decision. As you know, at the last convention, I was opposed to changing it to majority. I thought I'd come back and put it to where it really ought to be. So basically, it just changes a majority to change the bylaws to 2/3, as long as there's advance notice. If there's not advance notice, it requires a 3/4 vote. And I think that this body is very capable of understanding good proposals and voting for them with the necessary threshold, but a majority is just way too low, way too risky. You would never have a constitution written with only a majority vote to change it at any given time.
Okay, are you speaking against?
Against, yes. Star Child from San Francisco. A question for the body. By show of hands, how many have read this proposal in advance before seeing it here today? About maybe 10 or so out of, what are we, 180? The point I'm making is that in practice, people don't tend to read this stuff in advance when it's posted on the website. Only a few insiders. And the importance of being able to come as grassroots members to convention and be able to pass things from the floor is an important protection of us being a bottom-up grassroots party. Most people aren't invested in this stuff year-round. They're not paying attention to every single thing that comes out of the executive committee or whatever. They don't have time for that. Maybe if we had better communication and participation in our leadership, more transparency, that could improve. But right now, clearly only a small portion of people are really reading stuff in advance. So the idea that there should be, you know, a much higher threshold if you don't do it in advance, it's kind of a meritless distinction, I think. And I'm opposed to making it more difficult for people to bring stuff forward from the floor when we're all together as a grassroots deliberative body. I think this is a move towards more consolidation in a top-down party, making it harder for ordinary members to make changes. I'm not that convinced that the bylaws we have now are so terrific that we want to make it more difficult to reform them. Please vote no on this proposal. Thank you.
Okay, somebody for?
Dr. Olson, Kings County. So what we did last year fixed one problem, but we created an entirely new problem, which is equally bad, if not maybe worse than the problem that we fixed last year. So the problem that we fixed last year was that frequently in the past when we would propose bylaws amendments, we would have groups of people leave the business room in order to stop those bylaws amendments from even being able to be considered. And that was because the old rule was that it was a vote of all registered delegates, not just delegates present and voting. So sometimes, by the time we got to the bylaws report, people had already left to go home, and so it took a very small number of people to just stop business. So we fixed that. But then we also created this situation where we made it a simple majority in order to change our bylaws, which are the documents that we run business by. I mean, it's basically the constitution of the party. And so we made it far too easy to change, to amend these guiding documents. So I think it's very important that we vote yes to fix this and get back to being able to do business the way we need to do as a party. Thank you.
Thank you. Against?
Yes, Madam Chairman, would it be in order at this time to divide the question? Because there are two parts to it. One of them is the 2/3 vote of all registered delegates, and then the last one is people coming in and making motions from the floor requiring 3/4. So I'm calling for that to be divided, if it's in order at this time.
I think it's in order. It is in order. I think I know what you're trying to do. And it isn't my place, but it seems that could also be done with an amendment to just say that it takes 2/3 to amend the bylaws, because if you changed it, if you divide it, it's going to say 2/3 to do this and 2/3 to do that, and it's the same 2/3 to do both.
Okay.
It's just a suggestion, but
I take
we
that.
can divide the question if you'd like to, and I can see if there's a standing second for division. Or do you want to do the other? I'm just looking at the fact that it would be redundant.
I would be willing to make a substitute motion that
Persist.
on the last sentence it would say, shall require a 2/3 vote of registered delegates present and voting to pass. So it would get rid of that 3/4 vote.
Okay.
If not, I would call the question to be divided.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So, yes, point of order. I will let you do that first, because I'm looking at something.
I don't know if that's in order to, basically, the existing language already says 2/3. So you're making a motion to make a separate motion to go back from 3/4 to 2/3. It's just, I guess I'm just finding it strange.
Okay, Madam Chairman, I called for the question to be divided.
Okay, well, first things first, he has called for division of the question, which would be in order. Is there a standing second? It would need 18 people standing to second the motion for division. I don't think we have 18. Okay, anybody that's standing, close the door in the back, please. If you're standing, you're seconding this motion. I just want to make sure, because suddenly the door was open and people were standing. Okay, 2. I'm still only counting 15. Do you want to, if I'm wrong, let me know, but I'm only counting 15. Okay, now I'm counting 16. Okay, I don't think that we have 18, but we're going to do this one more time because people keep standing and sitting and standing and sitting. Anybody that wants to second this, stand up now, stay standing, make sure you're standing for what you're doing. Okay. Oh, you're not standing. Okay, it's, he's hiding. It's still not 18. Okay. So it dies for lack of second. It doesn't fail, it just dies for lack of second. Okay, we just had somebody speaking for. Do we have anybody speaking against? Okay, then we have another speaking for.
All right, so given the size of that vote, maybe we should get on with it. But I'll just briefly comment. I know not everybody in the room is a Robert's Rules and Bylaws wonk, right? So you may not realize what the difference is between bylaws and convention rules. Things that are in the convention rules, we can suspend on the fly with a 2/3 vote. Things that are in the bylaws are things you don't want to suspend. These are the serious organizational structure elements, what it takes to be a member, that sort of thing. And so what you want in your bylaws about the core design of the organization is things that have really strong support. And so Robert's Rules recommends that you require at least previous notice and a 2/3 vote to amend them. This is industry standard if we adopt this amendment. And create some organizational stability where you don't have the core fundamentals of your organization changing rapidly. That's bad for an organization. And the key point of parliamentary procedure is to find out what the majority wants, right? So you don't always have everybody in the room at a convention at the same time, right? So that's why some things you raise the threshold. All right, well, not everybody's in the room, but if you get 2/3 of those that are present and voting, that is deemed a strong indicator that this has strong support, even though some people are not in the room. So just wanted to make the core point that this is industry standard, and we really should adopt this.
Thank you. Are you speaking against?
I'm Chris Gannier from Orange, and I'm calling the question.
Okay. The question's been called. Is there objection to calling the question?
I just have a point of information.
Okay. I will hear the point of information first, but actually, no, he did it first. The question's been called. Is there objection to ending debate? Okay, hearing no objection, that means we will go to a vote on this motion, which is to amend the bylaws as is shown on the screen, which would amend it that motions made with advance notice would require a 2/3 vote of those present and voting, and motions made from the floor would require a 3/4 vote of those present and voting. Does everybody understand what they're voting on? I take that as a yes. So this requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Okay, the motion passes, and that will take effect immediately. Did you still have a point of information? There was no provision to say it took effect any other time, so per Roberts, unless there's a provision to say something differently, amendments take effect at the time that they're voted in. Okay, so what that brings us to, yes?
I have a point of personal privilege.
Yes, sir.
A lot of you guys might have seen it, a lot of you guys maybe haven't, but there's been a little flyer going around that I just thought was important to address with swastika on it and comparing a certain group of individuals here to Nazis, essentially. And some of these individuals happen to be direct relatives of people who died in Auschwitz. And I just wanted to say how disgusting and how absolutely wrong, immoral, and unethical it is to call these people out. Thank you. As a party, we need to keep pushing forward in unity, and we need to work together for our real objectives to get people into office, to make the real difference at a local level, where, in my opinion, it's most important. We have city councilmen that are currently elected in here. They're making a great difference in their community. We need to focus on winning elections. We need to focus on getting people in office. We need to put this petty shit behind us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that. If there's no other points or anything, this will lead us into the Bylaws Committee report. Ms. Nix is the chair of that committee. They, of course, have had their report up on the website for 60 days. So everybody, and it was emailed to everybody, everybody should know about it. So here we go with her report, and then we'll go to vote.
All right. A couple things before we get started. First of all, I would like to thank the body for doing all the voting that got us to this point a day ahead of time, because it means I can have a drink tonight. So, and second, I say this because I know that he's watching, or at least was a couple minutes ago. There is a longtime member of our party who I was going to say is no longer with us, but that sounds way too morbid. He moved out of state recently. He was a longtime member of the Bylaws Committee and of the Executive Committee, and he's such a nerd for all this type of stuff. He is watching this from his home in Tennessee when he could be doing anything else on a Saturday. So if you guys have noticed that questions have been called less often, it's because Mr. Brandon Nelson is not here. I just wanted to give you a shout out if you're watching from that camera or that one there. All right. Are we ready? There. Okay, so this is the 2022 Bylaws Committee report. The first recommendation is a pretty straightforward one. It's something you've already heard addressed several times. I believe Ms. Mayatiko just, hope I said that right, just mentioned that. It is simply codifying that proviso that you guys have heard about, where amendments to the bylaws shall take effect upon the close of convention. It just simply puts that in our bylaws instead of it just being in Robert's rules. And the only other changes to that would be that the existing text in Bylaw 26 would be renumbered as Section 1, and this would come in as Section 2.
Okay, so that is the motion. It doesn't need a second. I'm going to take a moment just to, and I hate to do this, but I think that this is a parliamentary point that needs to be made, in that, so everybody understands what they're voting on. So in Roberts, and I'm doing this as a parliamentary point of information. In Roberts, it states that it takes effect immediately unless there's a provision to do otherwise. Just to be clear, because I was unclear the way she presented it, this would say all amendments to the bylaws shall take effect upon the close of convention, which would mean that there would be no opportunity to do an amendment that would take effect immediately. It takes that out. You can't suspend the rules. You can't make a proviso. This would be what it is. So I wanted to make that clear before people started debating it. So, okay, now we're at debate. Anybody against?
Guess what I want to say.
Damn, I should have let you say it first.
So I actually oppose this for exactly what Mimi just stated. The current rule we have gives us some flexibility, right? We have an option that we can either not put a proviso on it so it goes into effect immediately, or put a proviso on it it takes effect whenever the proviso says, usually at the end of convention. What this does, the effect is actually to remove the flexibility. This says no matter what, they take effect at the close of convention. Well, we just adopted one that we wanted to take effect immediately, so we couldn't do that again, right? So it takes away an option from us, and as I mentioned a few minutes ago, difference between bylaws and rules, you can suspend the rules, but you can't suspend the bylaws. Well, this would be in the bylaws. You can't suspend it, you're locked out. The only way to change it is another bylaw amendment, so you gotta give notice, right? So I'm gonna vote against this one because it removes our flexibility to choose, so sometimes there are bylaw amendments that you need to go into effect immediately.
Thank you. Is there anybody speaking for this? Since we go back and forth, anybody speaking for this? Okay, then we'll go ahead and we'll do another against.
All right, so Dr. Olson, Kings County once again, and once again I agree with both Mr. Starr and Ms. Marcel on this issue. So this issue, this would really cause a serious problem. There are often times when we want a bylaw to take effect immediately that we're going to change, and this creates no way of doing that. Absolutely no way. Like, even if you made a bylaw that allowed you to make a change immediately after this is passed, that still won't go into effect until after the convention. So there is absolutely no way to change a bylaw immediately if this passes. If what the makers of this amendment wanted to do was make it so that it normally passes or normally takes effect at the end of the convention, then there should be some way of making it so, maybe a higher threshold or something that would allow you to still do a bylaws amendment that takes effect immediately. This just really messes up. And I was on the bylaws committee, and I'm the lone no vote on this amendment. It's a terrible amendment. Please vote no.
Okay, is there still nobody speaking for? Okay, then we'll go to another against.
I noticed that this doesn't contain a proviso, so I guess, does it go into effect immediately or at the end? But
if it passes, there's no proviso, so it would take effect immediately.
Right, so it takes effect immediately, even though the amendments say, these things say amendments should take place at the close of the convention, but this will go into effect immediately. So this is not a good idea, folks. Robert's Rules of Order goes back to like the 1870s and has developed over time some changes, but this is a long-standing default. It just simply says bylaws changes go into effect immediately unless you include a proviso that says it'll be adopted at some other time. And I think it works really well. You've got flexibility. Don't hamstring yourselves. Don't use something that's not the standard. The standard is the way to go, and the standard in Roberts says goes effect immediately unless you have a proviso that says otherwise. Thank you.
Okay, seeing nobody at either mic, I take it that there is no further discussion. So we will go to an immediate vote, and this will require a 2/3 vote based upon the last thing that just happened. So, everybody understand what they're voting on? A yes vote would do this thing, a no vote would not do this thing. Do I need to go further than that than just say thing? Okay, the thing is, this proposal, if passed, would say that all bylaws amendments go into effect at the close of convention, which would not be able to be changed. It would be all bylaws amendments would go into effect at the end of convention. Is that clear? Okay, if you want things to go into effect at the end of the convention every single time, the motion that's made is to amend the bylaws to make all amendments go into effect at the end of the convention. So if you vote yes, you're voting for this. If you vote no, you're voting against it. Do you understand now, or do you still not? Everybody that spoke against. There was not one person that spoke in favor. Correct. Nobody spoke in favor. So yes, if you're just going by who spoke, everybody that spoke was speaking against voting yes. So in other words, they were wanting you to vote no. Okay. Good questions. All questions are good. Any other questions, or is there anybody that does not understand what they're voting on? Okay, all those in favor of this amendment to have all bylaws amendments go into effect at the end of the convention?
Point of inquiry, or
Give me a moment.
So here's,
point of information, I
this
guess.
is the section 1 there, but now that's different because we just voted to change it to 2/3.
Yeah, whatever. Point of something.
Well, is it as amended?
No. Okay, the question is, would this change something that already happened? No. It didn't, this didn't exist at that time, so the motion that just passed still took effect immediately and would still take effect immediately. No, because this would pass now, which would mean going forward, it would change. So every amendment past this would take effect at the end of the convention. The one that we just passed was before this happened, so we don't go back into the Wayback Machine and change that, because it happened at the other thing.
So, yeah, I was just make sure that people are aware that what's on the screen now is technically wrong.
I would like to speak in favor.
Okay, is the question that what's on the screen is wrong?
Okay, just so everyone's clear, the section 1 on the board now, we just voted to amend that. So it's not the majority, it's the 2/3.
Okay, so what should happen is we should have striked out what just got, okay, just get rid of section 1 completely, because this amendment doesn't affect section 1 at all. This affects only section 2. Your amendment is only to add that, correct? Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen doesn't matter. That's not part of this amendment. That's changed now. It doesn't revert back because that's not part of this amendment. The amendment is simply the part that's blue. That's the only amendment. So pretend you don't see section 1 because it's not part of this. That's already been changed. This doesn't change it back because we're only voting on the amended part, which is the blue part.
Except for the part where we call it section 1. Yeah, but
It would still be section 1. The other one be section 2, but it doesn't change section 1 because nothing in section 1 changes, including the fact that it's section 1. Okay, does everybody understand what they're voting on?
Yes, I still have a point of information.
Yes.
Can I ask the chair of the bylaws committee why they think that this should be passed?
I would like to speak in
No.
I would like to speak in favor.
You know, we can, but we already ended debate and we were just going
Right.
to a vote, but I think that when she made the motion, she explained why she was doing it, which was part of the introduction part of the motion. Okay, sorry. Okay, anything else? Okay, all those in,
Well, is debate's over, right?
debate's over, we're at a vote. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Okay, the motion fails. We will go to the next item on the bylaws committee. Okay, I saw people go into the mic, wanted to make sure. Ms. Nix.
All right, moving on to recommendation 2. I'll wait for the secretary. All right, while that's happening, so proposal 2 has to do with the, if you guys were here last year, we made a change to a change to the membership that affected the lifetime memberships. There was a lot of confusion as to whether or not people's lifetime membership expired. Why you're going to the bylaws committee to that and not to a priest is beyond me. I think lifetime membership means just that, but it was confusing to some people. So we made a couple changes to hopefully make the concept of lifetime a little more obvious. And so along with that, we also made just a couple changes here. You'll see in the beginning, individuals may becomes be. So individuals may be members of the State Central Committee by residing in California, accepting the certification, which is something that you, I believe, all did when you signed up anyway, And the other requirements that are there, you can read it there on the screen. And then scrolling down to the next change, we have lifetime members shall retain their lifetime membership. Now becomes lifetime central committee members may retain their central committee membership in the event they no longer reside in California so long as they meet all other requirements. Being alive is implied.
Yeah, it's confusing. People say, why can't I renew online to upgrade to lifetime? You don't have a lifetime membership renewal. We don't. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. That was, okay. Excuse my indecorum, but I just had to say that. Okay, so that is the motion. We will go to, we will start with against. Who is against this?
First, a quick comment. A lot of us remember Dan Weiner. When on the LNC, he proposed that we actually have a post-lifetime membership as a fundraiser. All right. So I actually support this, but I'm in this line because I want to amend to add a proviso that it will take effect at the end of the convention.
And that is a good proviso.
If it's second, I'll wait to debate after it's been seconded.
Okay, so it's been moved to amend this proposal to add that this proposal would in fact take effect at the end of the convention. That requires a standing second. Do I have 18 people that will stand to second that?
It's not a main motion, right? So
It does all, no, we went through this last time. It says that amendments to these also require standing seconds.
All right.
You've gone back and forth on this yourself, Mr. Starr.
I think we'll get 18. So not
Okay,
much.
we've got more than 18 people standing. So now we are on discussion of the amendment only. Would you like to speak? You've got 30 seconds to speak to your amendment.
Okay, in spite of just having argued that we don't want everything to take effect at the end of the convention, this is one that we do want to delay because we're altering the terms of membership in the middle of convention. And we don't want to have to recess, go look and make sure everybody accepted the certification and make sure everybody that's already been credentialed meets the new standard, right? So we'll continue with who we have for this convention, and this will go into effect basically when we adjourn here.
Okay. Next, somebody spoke. She was speaking in favor of her motion. Are you speaking against?
I'm trying to get a clarification of the intent of this amendment and of the original proposal. I thought this was supposed to just be a clarification of what was intended as the effect last time, because the word retained didn't quite, do it. Now I'm hearing that it matters whether we do it now or at the end of the convention. I've also seen something at the credentials desk. There was something that said, if you live out of state, but you were a life member as of last May, then you can still be qualified, which was not what I understood what we had passed last time to mean. I understood it to mean that if you were a life member, if you became a life member while you lived in California and then you moved away, your voting privileges didn't go away. So what I want is clarification. Is this intended to change something about the rules? So if it's not, then I think it's worded incorrectly. I don't see anything about May 17th, 2021.
Yeah, so I will answer that point of that was a point of information, correct?
I'm trying to understand.
You're wanting clarification?
Yeah.
I do see your point that it doesn't need this proviso in this case because it actually doesn't change anything. And just the May 17th date, that was put there because we have not had any new life members that have joined and moved out of state since May 17th, so we were trying to make it easier. But the intent last year, and this clarifies it, is when you become a life member, you live in California, and then you move out of state, you retain your life membership so long as you still meet the other qualifications, which are accepting the certification, being current in dues, and being registered Libertarian if eligible.
Well, you can't change your dues. The dues part wouldn't change.
Right, but I'm just saying, But I'm just saying that that's what this is clarifying, is so
before
long
people
as
vote
you
on
meet
it,
the other.
understand whether
So
they're
this really
changed.
doesn't require a proviso because, and I'm answering your question, I'm not speaking in favor or against, because nothing in this would require reopening of credentials unless, because by the way, even though it's now stated in this amendment, accepting the certification, that's always been in the first section, which is under definitions. So you already had to have done that. This just clarifies it, mainly because it's come up with counties. So it's just a clarification. It is not changing anything. Everybody in this room had to have accepted the certification to be in the first place. I will say that we've already had it moved and seconded to do this thing. So if you agree that this doesn't require anything further of a proviso, just vote the amendment down at this point. Okay, so we're still only debating the amendment. Are you speaking?
I have a point of inquiry, actually.
I'm sorry?
A point of inquiry.
Sure.
Desmond Mantle, Los Angeles County. I wanted to ask about those other requirements, namely the registered for Libertarian Party if registered to vote. If we don't have, I think it's suggestion 4 passed, which is the one that would allow no party preference to be reintroduced. If we don't have that, does that mean that people who live in states where there's no party registration and register to vote would become ineligible because they're not libertarians? Or if, for example, there's a legitimacy contested between multiple state affiliates, you know, where national or another state would recognize breakaway groups of like a state party or something like that, how do we deal with those kinds of conflicts under this?
Okay, so it says, and this isn't actually a conflict, it's something that I was, if you are a life member in the state, you meet the qualifications, you move out of state, the if eligible part would then fall into place. If you move to a state that does not have libertarian as an option to register, you're ineligible to register as libertarian.
Got it, okay.
So you can't do something that you can't do, so
Right.
that makes it ineligible to do so. So this wouldn't change that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're still speaking only on the amendment. Are you against or for? Yes, sir. I think the battery died, he said. You guys are using that battery up.
Stop being so against things.
Yeah, the 4 one is like still working strong.
Check, check.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schumacher. By the way, he's also a life member, and he's doing all this work for us.
Just a request for information, could you or someone else read the certification language under Bylaw 4 so people are clear what the current requirements are?
I can, although I don't know that that's speaking for or against this motion, but I will take that as a point of information, and I will read what it says under definitions. And I said the wrong section, I believe. It should have been definitions. I said 1, it's 4. Under definitions, it says, Bylaw 4C, certification, I certify that I oppose the initiation of force as a means of achieving political or social goals. Certification shall be required to be a member of the State Central Committee. Individuals who have executed previous versions of the certification shall also meet this requirement. So in other words, it's always been a requirement in the definitions. This just clarifies it in the to be a Central Committee member, to put it all in one place, is the way I understand the reasoning. Is there further discussion for or against? Okay, then we'll go to a vote on the amendment only. The amendment was to do a proviso to have this go into effect at the end of the convention. There had been a point of information asking if this was necessary. That was answered. So now we're voting on the amendment only. All those in favor of the amendment to make the proviso that it happens at the end of convention, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Wow, that was weak. I hear a lot of people that don't really care about this. Okay. All those in favor, it failed, so, no, it passed, So it will go into effect at the end of the convention if it passes. Although it won't change anything, just FYI. Okay, now we were back to debate on the main motion as amended with the proviso.
As a point of personal privilege, can we pull the room again about the temperature?
Sure, and let me guess, are you thinking it's too hot now?
No, I'm thinking it's a little cold. That's just me.
Okay,
That's why we should pull the room.
Okay, we'll poll the room. Is it too cold in here? If it is, okay, we've polled the room and it's perfect. Okay. Yeah, that was half and half, so there's nothing to do except for maybe the people over there and over there should switch seats, because it seems like these people and those people have different climates. Okay.
Madam Chair, I move to end debate.
Yes?
I move to end debate.
Oh, we already did because there was no discussion. Oh, no, you can do that. Yes, okay. I don't think, nobody was debating, but good to go. So, okay. It has been moved by Ms.
Alex Belansky.
Belinsky. I just wanted to make sure I knew the Alex part. I wanted to make sure the Belinsky was right.
Yes.
The question has been called to end debate by Ms. Belinsky. Is there any objection to ending debate? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. This is on the main motion as amended. All those in favor, please. And does everybody understand what they're voting on? No? We're not voting on the temperature. Does everybody understand what they're voting on? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passed. Okay, we go to the next bylaws proposal. Ms. Nix?
All right, moving on to recommendation 3. This affects Bylaw 9, Bylaw 19, Section 3. The reasoning behind this one is, as you can read, having to be a state central committee member for so long prior to convention in order to be a voting delegate hurts the party in both the short term and the long term. It disenfranchises those who might otherwise attend convention, buy a package, donate to the party at convention, and volunteer their time afterward. It also discourages current members from continuing to recruit new members during this time. Many other state affiliates either have no such requirement or have made it a mere 30 days or less. So the impact of this one is that the bylaws amendment would allow anyone who has been a state central committee member for any 60 days prior to convention would be eligible to be a voting delegate, as opposed to the current bylaw requirement of 90 days. Well, not currently. There can be. Just making it myself. Yeah. All right.
Madam Chair.
So this would, sorry to interrupt. This would have a proviso that this would be coming into effect at the end of convention. We're going to have a lot of these, which is why we had that first proposal. But.
Okay, so the motion is to amend the bylaws to change the requirement for being a voting delegate. This has the proviso that it would take effect at the end of the convention, therefore meaning we wouldn't have to reopen credentials. Doesn't need a second. It goes to debate. We will start with the against.
Okay. For those who don't know the background of this being in the bylaws, this is to prevent a takeover of the party. Is there anyone in here that wants to see a takeover of the party? Okay. Well, no, let me ask you again, and don't answer this one out loud. Would you like a different faction to take over the party in a few more years? And the second question I have for you to think about, do you want outsiders to come and overwhelm a future LP California convention, then use our ballot access to promote a figure who might or might not align with our values? Please consider that before we're voting, and I would recommend a no.
Okay, speaking in favor.
This is point of personal privilege. Richard Fast, Contra Costa. Could the secretary please enlarge the font on the screens? It's hard to read again. Thank you.
Okay. You're speaking for?
Yeah. Gary Alstead, Orange County. I agree with the previous speaker that we do need to protect ourselves from takeovers, but the way to do it isn't a 60 or a 90-day barrier. Any party that wanted to, the Democrats, Republicans, either one could take us over in a heartbeat with a 90-day, with a 120-day, with whatever. They're just so much bigger than we are. The way we protect ourselves from a takeover is we grow as fast as we can and become a major party ourselves. And we don't do that by gatekeeping and telling new people that they aren't important to the party, that they don't have a vote. So the smart thing to do if you don't want to take over is to reduce this waiting period and try to bring as many people in as we can into the party. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Speaking against?
Dr. Kenneth Olson, Kings County. I completely disagree with that statement. Like, reducing the number of days that it takes to have an influence on the direction that this party goes does not protect this party from a takeover at all. What we need, what we saw happen in the state of New York was Howard Stern decided he wanted to run for governor, which he ended up cutting his gubernatorial run short, but it did damage to the party because he basically brought in a bunch of delegates into their state convention to basically turn it into the Howard Stern party. And then that went nowhere because he didn't really do anything with it. Plus, is he really a libertarian? He seems kind of more left-wing to me, personally. We need this in place to protect our party. These kinds of proposals came about state by state, and I think every state should have a seasoning period because of what happened with Mr. Stern, and I'm sure it's probably happened in other situations. We have something that's really precious in the state of California, and that is ballot access. It's very difficult for a party to get ballot access in the state of California, and yet we are one of a few that do. Do you want some other party, like the Common Sense Party, who's trying really hard to get ballot access, to come in and just take over this party and completely change it into something that's unrecognizable to us? This is absurd. We should increase the seasoning period, if anything. Thank you.
Speaking for?
Hey, this is Michael Lima from Alameda. And first off, I want to say I can give 2 good reasons why I'm for this. Victoria and I have donated thousands and thousands of dollars to this party, to Jeff Hewitt's campaign, to Kelly's campaign, and we weren't able to get credentialed last year because we had only been in the party for 87 days. Dues-paying members for 87 days. I've only ever been a registered libertarian. Anyways, it is up to the body to determine who gets elected into these leadership positions. So if somebody sneaks in here, it's up to the body to weed them out and not let them get elected. I am 100% for a 60-day rule, or maybe even amending it to, like, if you show up to 2 county meetings so the counties can vet them out. Please vote yes for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Against?
So these numbers of days are kind of arbitrary. 60 days is less than 90 days. 30 days might be even better if you believe the 60 days is good, or maybe 15 days. Now, the problem with this is, as people pointed out, the shorter you make it, the easier it is for people to come in specifically to affect the convention. And that's not what membership is supposed to be about. We have a membership requirement for being a delegate, a voting delegate, because we want our convention to represent the membership. Now, who are the membership? Don't we want more members? Yes, we want more members. We want more members every single year than the previous year. When do we get members? Well, why would we just, people are talking about this as though being a delegate to the convention is the pitch to become a member. That's not when we should be pitching membership. We're supposed to be a political party. The time to be selling membership is while we're campaigning for public office, immediately following a campaign for public office, when we've identified supporters and getting them in, then become permanent supporters of the party. Now, it is true, there are some people like that were 87 days, and that seems unfair, especially if they gave a whole bunch of money. But we already have a provision in the bylaws to deal with that the executive committee can, each member of the executive committee can give one person an exception. Now, I don't like the way that works, because why should the executive committee get to say? And why shouldn't the convention have a say? So there's a better way to fix this. For all of these cases that sound like they're good, look at the proposal you've got on your table that says a proposal to allow more recent members to serve as delegates. This would be a much more practical way to deal with these exceptional cases, the 87-day cases, the last-minute celebrity who says he wants to join the party, but do it safely. So please look at that. If you really want to help these guys, this is the way to fix it without having the danger.
Was that time? 1 second. You said 2 minutes.
Yeah, so 2 minutes for Jodine and then time on the discussion. It's been 10 minutes of discussion.
It's 15 for discussion. We've got 5 more minutes. All main motions get 15 minutes, but he got time. He was at time for 2 minutes. Got it. Somebody 4.
Kat McElroy, Fresno. I hear a lot of concerns about non-libertarians somehow taking over the Libertarian Party or our state party, but you have many examples in this room, including myself, of people who were libertarians their whole lives, but had no reason to join the party and finally got convinced. So why have a longer cutoff for somebody who's clearly been a libertarian for a long time, and just let them vote at convention if that's what they want to do? And a 60-day cutoff seems more reasonable than 90. There's no big difference, especially if somebody's been a libertarian for a long time. Let's get them in the party. Let's get them active. Let's not disenfranchise them.
Against.
I think the point is actually being made by the previous speaker. These are people that we don't know. We don't know if they've been libertarians for a long time. All we know is that somebody just joined us 61 days ago, and that's all we know about them. So
please, no crosstalk. Mr. You're out of order. You're out of order. You're not supposed to be in the room. You're out of order.
Okay. I'll continue when you're ready.
Okay, we were at against.
Yes. So we don't know who these people are. I think that, look, first of all, everyone who knows me knows that I'm a real big believer in bringing in new blood into the party all the time. I don't want there to be huge barriers. I don't think 90 days is a huge barrier. Everybody who's in this room today is eligible next year. Even if you wait to, let's say you lapse and you rejoin the day before the next convention, as long as you were a member at least 90 days in the past sometime, you can become a current member and you're able to come here. So there's nobody here today that's going to be disenfranchised if this motion does not pass. And this gives us some protections. I mean, let's think about it this way. Our presidential candidates are doing better. At some point, they're going to qualify for matching funds. And that'll be a good thing. The problem is that that's a huge bucket of money, and it'll be to the advantage of somebody who wants to get it to organize, take over state parties, so that they can get that piece of pie from the feds. You don't really want that type of risk. So 90 days, I think, is fine. Let's just stick to 90 days. It's not going to, there's very, very few people who are going to be impacted by it between 90 and 60. 90 is a reasonable barrier. Thank you.
Okay, somebody speaking for?
Dave Bowers, Los Angeles County. I just want to speak in favor of the 60 days. I do recall when we set it to 90 days, I I thought that was a little onerous, and I think that 60 days is good, and certainly I wouldn't go for 30, so I like the 60 days.
Thank you. Against?
June Jennings, Riverside County. I want to point out that we have a requirement for advance notice to the membership of 60 days. Therefore, if we reduce this, we can have people who decide, oops, 60 days out, we better pack the convention. It's a bad idea. I also want to point out that when we were discussing whether we should adjourn for the day, somebody said, no, we can't do that. I've got people coming in tomorrow just to vote on the elections. And we voted a lot more, there's a lot more stuff we do here than just vote for the elections. And so I think this is a bad idea. We want people we know are libertarians who've had a chance to prove they're libertarians, and 60 days is just not enough.
4?
Look around this room. Everyone in this room, whether or not they're able to vote, I really think it would be great if they could. We should be treating each other with respect and encouraging people to participate and come to these conventions and spend money and help the party. If the GOP wanted to take us over, they would just buy a bunch of memberships at the 90-day mark, because there are millions of them and there are not millions of us yet. So let's grow so we can get into millions so that we can stomp the GOP into the dirt. Thank you.
Against?
Yes, I would like to speak against this motion. I think the 90 days is fine, and as already been mentioned, there was a legitimate reason why we put it in way back when, was because of what happened in New York. And I do believe that if we have a special situation, such as, for example, in 1980 in Newsweek, they asked a whole bunch of celebrities, who are you voting for or supporting for president? And Raquel Welch suggested she might vote for Ed Clark, our 1980 presidential candidate. If all of a sudden Raquel Welch shows up and says, I want to be a member of the party, I want to participate, I'm pretty sure we would allow her to participate.
4?
Matthew Butts, Kern County. Madam Chair, I'd like to call a question.
You're calling a question?
Yes.
Okay. The question's been called. That would end debate. Is there any objection to ending debate? Objection. There's been objection, therefore we will go to a vote. This is a 2/3 vote, and it's non-debatable. All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, debate is ended. We will go to a vote on the motion. So again, this motion would be to amend the bylaws to change it from a 90-day requirement of being a central committee member prior to convention, and it's some 90-day period, to some 60-day period prior to convention. That wasn't funny.
I did it away from your computer. Take note.
Does everybody understand what they're voting on? Okay.
Madam Speaker, point of personal privilege.
Sure.
I would like to inform the Speaker that I use they, them pronouns and would prefer to be referred as mix and not miss.
I'm sorry,
I use they, them pronouns, and I would prefer to be referred to as mix and not miss.
I say Ms. every time.
MX, mix.
I say Ms. every time. Is that what you're saying you'd prefer, or would you
I would
prefer
prefer
Miss?
mix, MX.
M-I-S-S?
MX.
Mix.
Yes. Like you mix a bowl of goodies.
Okay, I will call you Mix
Belansky.
from this point.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I will try really hard to remember.
It's okay. I understand if you don't.
Okay. I'll try really hard. I mean, I really, really will, but I sometimes forget because I'm old. Okay. So, all those in favor of this amendment, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. Okay, the motion fails. We will go to the next item on the Bylaws Committee report. Ms. Nix?
Call for division. We'd like a standing vote.
Okay, Culture Vision needs 10 people standing. Is there 10 people that would like to stand to call for division? We've got far more than 10, so therefore we will do, no, you don't need to do that yet. We've got the 10 people. That's what we need to call for division. So now we will go to a counted vote I will go ahead and do this as a counted vote as opposed to just a standing vote to start with. This time, every time at each place, we're going to start from the front row because some people in the front get confused if we start from the back rows. So, I'm going to still do it section by section. That would be fabulous. We have a volunteer that is going to walk through and point at you when it's your turn to vote. All those in favor of this motion, please stand with your badges raised. Oh, actually, it doesn't. Never mind. I heard 80. Was that 81 or 80?
Right, I counted 80, and then she had not voted, and so she added to it, so we're at 81.
Okay. Yeah, mix. Okay, 81. All those opposed, please stand, and we're going to do this again. I know. I'll find out as soon as they vote, and I'll know that they're present and voting.
That's true. See, I'm not a math person. You're the engineer. I'm the creative.
12 in this section, remember my 12?
$13. Okay.
I thought it was 82.
No, it's 81.
81? Okay. Sorry. Ignore me.
Oh, I screwed that up. It's, okay, so it was 81 to 46? No. It fails. It didn't have 2/3 of those present and voting. Okay, that will bring us to the next item on the Bylaws Committee report. Ms. Nix. I was double checking.
You were the one that decided what my name was in this party. I mean, All right, recommendation 3.5, the vice chair would love an iced caramel macchiato, and the impact would be that I'll Venmo you. All right, recommendation 4, this affects Bylaw 5 membership. There, in the impact there, you'll see that there is a note explaining that if earlier proposals were adopted, that this would be different. That kind of goes without saying, but we put it in there just so it could be clear. All right, so there are members who wish to revisit the provision regarding the requirement that state central committee members be registered libertarian voters. Also regarding the phrase "if eligible" as used in the existing bylaw. Voter registration has proven difficult to enforce due to faulty tracking systems. If eligible is also difficult to enforce, as there are a number of private, confidential, and/or personal reasons one might not be eligible to vote, including reasons resulting from state actions that libertarians do not typically agree with. Namely, in that situation, for example, a felon would be ineligible to vote. However, they could be a felon because they have marijuana in their trunk or something, which we would be against. So the change, the impact would be that this amendment would allow members registered as no party preference to be state central committee members. It also eliminates the phrase "if eligible" in exchange for "if registered." Becomes simply "be" to clarify status, but apparently not that sentence. All right, so the change becomes section 1, individuals may become members of the state central committee by residing in California and, as amended now, accepting certification. And what is now point C, being a registrant of the Libertarian Party or no party preference if registered, so that allows for anarchists, felons, anyone, or if you're under 18, or whatever, if you're not a citizen, whatever reasons there may be. So this simply changes that along with all the changes that we previously just adopted. All right. And maybe whenever you're ready.
I'm sorry, I was just,
Oh, it's okay.
because of the provision, I think that what we need to do is we need to show the bylaw as amended that already passed with this change in it. Because that was the provision, is that what already passed would still be part of this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm making that clarification because we just voted for something, and this could essentially change it.
I do, actually.
Okay, so, okay, we're going to discussion. We will start with the against.
All right, Dr. Olson, Kings County, once again. I was on this committee. I was in the minority on this proposal. I did have one other person vote along with me against this one. We just fixed this last year. Like, are we are we libertarians here, or are we no party preference? If we're no party preference, why are we here? Like, there's no reason to be here if we don't prefer a party, right? This is the Libertarian Party. What is the point? Why? I understand if you're ineligible to register to vote, you can already be a member. There's no problem there. But if you're eligible to be registered, register Libertarian or get the hell out. We want Libertarians here, not people who don't prefer a party. Come on. Let's not change this. We just fixed it last year.
Somebody for the floor?
Desmond Mantle, Los Angeles County. I do want to say that I think this is mainly an issue of strategic voting in primaries. I'll be perfectly honest, I love the fact that Democrats have an open primary, and I love picking off certain members of the Democratic primary that I want to have either get the Democratic nomination or not, because I think it's really powerful in a state like California that almost inevitably goes for a Democratic presidential candidate anyway, to have more say in that election. That doesn't make me not a libertarian, because when the general comes, I always vote libertarian anyway. There's no undermining of my commitment to that when I vote in a primary strategically by using the open system. California has a system we can take advantage of. It's strategic and it's not sincere voting, but hey, that's the state's fault, not ours. What we can do is vote strategically in primaries when we're registered no party preference, something that's significantly harder or impossible to do if we register Libertarian initially. We can always register Libertarian afterward and then vote Libertarian in the general, like we all should be when we have a great presidential nominee. I urge you all to vote Libertarian, but I also urge you to consider no party preference registration and voting in favor of this amendment.
Against?
I do have an argument against, but first, can I hear one more time the 2/3 threshold for bylaws to pass?
It's 2/3 of those
What's the
present and
number?
voting.
How many-
There
how many
is
is
no
it?
number. It's 2/3 of those present and voting. So I don't know the number till everybody votes. Does that make sense? It used to
Yes.
be 2/3 of those registered, or a majority of those registered. It is not that. It's just 2/3 of those present and voting, so therefore, you don't know till the vote's done.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, a lot of what I was about to say was already said before me. But yeah, I just wanted to reemphasize the point that this was fixed last year. As far as I remember, the people on the Bylaws Committee, which are some of the same people that are on this year's Bylaws Committee, were for changing it to to require Central Committee members to be registered Libertarian last year, and it didn't sound very controversial at the time. This is one convention ago. People were totally for. They didn't think it was too much to ask that if you're going to be a member of the party, that you're a registered Libertarian. I don't know why things are changing so quickly. I can speculate. But I think if we're going to be principled, we shouldn't be switching back and forth depending on who it benefits. Just come up with rules, stick with them, and let's stay principled. Thanks.
Four?
Instead of speculating, actually, let me shed a little bit of light on this. So when this passed last year, I was definitely in favor of it, and then there was no internal marketing campaign to our members to tell them, hey, you've got to make this change. I personally emailed every single one of you who had no party preference, except for a handful of people in Santa Clara, because Joe Dean had already done that. And I found several people would change and update their registration, and then they would go and check the website, and it was still no party preference, and it was a huge headache. So that's why I'm supporting this, because I believe that it actually has disenfranchised some of our members who have attempted to change voter registration in good faith, and I know that it's a frustrating headache for them. That's why I think we should allow it, and I would be open to revisiting it in the future, but right now I think it's very frustrating for a lot of members.
Against?
Aaron Starr, Ventura County. So, can you imagine the Republican Party saying, you know what, we don't care what party you belong to, or if you belong to our party, we're going to let you participate in our meetings and in our leadership and all that? No, of course not. Democrats the same. They all just require that they be, members of their party. Now, I get it that some people don't want to register to vote, and I'm okay with that. There's people who are philosophical anarchists. They have a reasonable position. But what I would suggest is this. I'd like to amend this so that we don't have the change for the or no party preference. Just make it simply being a registrant of Libertarian Party if registered. So that way you accommodate the folks that kind of like are a little bit underground, that don't want to really be a big part of the system, but you're not inviting people who have no commitment at all to you, who just want to float around and vote where they want to vote. You need committed people in the party to be in positions of influence and leadership, not just anybody who has a heartbeat and can fog a mirror.
Okay, wait. That was an amendment, correct?
That was an amendment. I guess I need a second.
Correct. So he moved to amend this to take out the portion about no party preference, but to just leave in the portion about...
Yeah, changing eligible to registered.
Right, so but that's in here already. It's already struck out. Yep. So it would put back in the first part, or get rid of the no party preference, extra words. I just want to make sure that everybody... Okay, and if the secretary could just strike out the extra words for this amendment so that people can see it on the screen. Is there a standing second of 18 people? There's 18. We will go to debate only on the amendment. You have 30 seconds to speak to your amendment.
I think I've spoke to it already. Bottom line is, let's make it easier for those people that don't want to register at all. But let's not make it for people who want to be registered but candidly don't feel like they want to be associated with us. I'd rather have people associated with us if they're going to register before we put them in some sort of leadership or influential position such as you folks here.
Okay, Are you speaking, you're speaking for?
For the amendment.
Perfect.
Dr. Kenneth Olson. Yeah, I have no problem with somebody not being registered to vote. I understand the principle and philosophy of some anarchists in choosing not to be registered to vote. I totally understand it. I got no problem with that. Sometimes I even feel that way myself. Like, sometimes I think voting is violence. I don't disagree with them sometimes, but then I also am pragmatic in some ways and feel like we need to use the system. So, but it's an internal conflict as a pragmatic anarchist. It's kind of an internal conflict that I struggle with. So I get that. So I'm fine with that. But again, I think it's very important if you're registered, register Libertarian. It's not that hard to ask.
You're speaking against.
Favor.
You're on the wrong side.
I'm not moving.
Okay, well, the next person is going to be an against because that was a for. So if there's an against behind you, you're speaking for as well? Okay, you're speaking on the motion. Are you speaking on the amendment or on the motion?
Both.
This is the amendment only.
Yep, I understand.
Just speak. Nobody else is at the other microphone, so I don't really care.
Mark Hinkle, anarchist and voter. Folks, do people here remember the Reform Party? It died because it was taken over by outsiders. When federal funds were offered, interlopers came in and grabbed the money and the party died. If we have outside folks coming in from other political parties, it's to kill the Libertarian Party or make it into something it is currently not. And one last issue I'd like to address. If you think voting in the Republican or Democratic primary is going to change the outcome of an election, you don't understand math.
Okay. We're screwy here, so is somebody speaking against the amendment only?
No, I want to speak in favor of it.
Okay. Are you also wanting to speak in favor of it? I'm going to go to her first because she's at the right microphone.
Sure.
Sandra Callender, Contra Costa County. I like the amendment. I have changed my voter registration. Well, when I got out of high school, I changed my voter registration to Democrat, knowing I was neither of the dominant party, neither was a home, but there were more choices in the primaries in California. If I registered Democrat, and I did that for a long time, I just picked the least worst and then see who they were running against. When Libertarians started showing up on the ballot, that's how I discovered the party, because they weren't incumbents, and they were like math professors and physicists and so forth. So since then, I have always been registered Libertarian, except for the first Ron Paul campaign, where I did change my vote to vote in the Republican primary. And I thought about it later, and I thought that was a stupid thing to do. I got more results helping his campaign by going door to door in my neighborhood with a personal letter of recommendation, and increased his vote total in the primary by 25%, from 3% to 4% compared to the rest of the LA County, just in the area where I went. And that was worth doing, but I didn't have to change my voter registration to do that. And I didn't feel like it was a conflict with my values. Wait and see if he even made it. And I decided then it doesn't make any sense to change your voter registration or do something like that. And that's why I am for the amendment, just because I think that accomplishes what we want to accomplish. And if you want to, anyway, that's how.
Okay, so that was for the amendment. Is there anybody speaking against the amendment? So now we've got two different oh, are you speaking against? Okay, then he's next, because he's nobody over here, so he's next because he's against. Yes, sir.
So Adrian F. Malagon, Chair of Contra Costa County, would like to point out this was my proposed amendment. There are a lot of people that are no party preference. And it's not just because people want to vote in primaries, but a lot of anarchists, such as myself, who was registered NPP, always voted on propositions because that's kind of one of the few things that we can control. So while I didn't want to register because I didn't want a target on my back at the time, I've since, obviously, as an ex-com member, have changed my registration and done all of that. But for a long time, after seeing friend after friend get audited and go through a financial colonoscopy, didn't want to deal with that. So a lot of people may not want to necessarily vote in primary. Someone pointed out math not being in our favor that way. That's true, but at least propositions here in California can, and we can vote down taxes and do that while we may not believe in candidates. So this is why I think that this is particularly important. And there's a lot of talk about outside takeovers. It's kind of ridiculous and absurd. Again, at any point in time, any organization could take over the Libertarian Party, GOP, DNC, whatever, because they have the money and they have the power, and we clearly don't. So I just kind of want to make that point. Thank you.
Okay, and just real quick, thank you very much. Real quick, we're only speaking on the amendment right now, not on the main motion. I think that was more on the main motion than the amendment.
So I would like to speak in favor of the amendment.
One moment. I'm sorry?
The amendment is to strike the no party preference, which is problematic. That's what I was
Oh, got it. Okay. Got it. Okay. Never mind.
The reason I'm in favor of the amendment is that this proposal from the Bylaws Committee is actually addressing two completely separate things. And I think one of them is important to address, and that is the if eligible versus if registered. The other problem that people are talking about like people who are embarrassed to be libertarians or are afraid to be identified as libertarians, that I don't think we need to address right now. I think that could be dealt with other ways. And I think it is better to have the motion on the floor be simply addressing the if registered thing. And we've talked about the anarchists and the people who are anti-voting and all the rest of that. I want to emphasize something else that was only very briefly mentioned, and that is there's a technical problem, there's an administrative problem with the current language. If you have this if eligible, how do you know who's eligible? Okay? And how do you know whether they're really registered and could have registered? It's been a nightmare for the people at the state party and some of us in counties who are trying to be very careful about following the rules to figure out whether somebody who isn't registered is eligible to be registered. And it has to do with things like felons and people who are not citizens and stuff like that. This amendment will focus the proposal on the thing that needs to be fixed. And if somebody wants to address the people who are scared to be libertarians, that's a separate issue.
Okay, so that was for the amendment. Is somebody speaking against?
I have personal information.
Yes, sir.
So we have a motion on the floor to amend, using the right terms here, right? So the original one was put out and notified, so everyone had it. But this new one is coming right now, so it's notification. Does that, in fact, because of the previous vote, does that change the threshold for the vote?
No, this is germane to the motion. So you can always make a motion to amend on any motion that was made with advance notice, so long as it's germane to the motion. This is germane because it's not adding something different, it's
So
just
still
taking a
two-thirds.
little part of it out. So
Still 2/3.
it's still
Okay.
2/3.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Okay, we're at time, so either we would go to an immediate vote unless there's a motion to extend time.
Motion to extend time for 5 minutes.
Okay, it's been moved. This only requires a second. Is it seconded? Okay, is there any objection to extending time by 5 minutes? Okay, it's been objected to, so we will go to a vote. That is not debatable. So that's, God, we haven't done this all day. It's minimum, majority. Yeah. No, I'm talking about to extend time. That's just simply a majority, right? Okay, it's 2/3. We haven't done that all day, so I forgot for a minute because my mind is mush. Okay, it's been objected to. That means we will go to a vote. A motion to end debate is not debatable, so therefore we will go to an immediate vote. It requires a 2/3 threshold. All in favor of ending debate, please say aye. Aye. And by the way, this is ending debate on the amendment only, correct? Just to be clear. And I'm going to do it one more time because I forgot to say that. All those in favor of ending debate on the It's really, I'm tired. All those in favor of extending time by 5 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Most time has not been extended. So we will go to a vote because we were at time. All those in favor
Chair,
of
point
the
of
amendment,
information.
and this will be all questions.
Point of information.
Yes, sir.
Is a 2/3 required for this amendment
No.
due to, it was just a
An
majority?
amendment only requires a
Simple majority.
and then the motion itself requires a 2/3.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. All those opposed? The amendment passed. We will go to a vote on, I'm sorry? It would need 10 people to stand for division. Are there 10 people that don't think that that was clear? Really? Okay. All right, we will go to a counted vote. Sure. All those in favor of the amendment, please stand. And this isn't going to be counted yet. It might be, but we're going to first do it this way. Okay, go ahead and sit. All those opposed, please stand. Okay, the motion to amend failed. Guess people are getting tired, and so am I. Now we will go to the main motion as presented. All those in favor? Yes?
I didn't know you were going to move right to a vote. I was going to offer another amendment, but if that's out of order, then never mind.
It's out of order. We have passed, we've passed time. We didn't have a motion to extend. It means that everything goes to a vote. All those in favor of the main motion?
Point of information?
Yes, sir.
Could you repeat the main motion, please?
The main motion is to allow no party preference voters to be members of the party, and also to change the language from if eligible to if registered. Does everybody understand what they're voting on? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The motion fails. Okay, we will next go.
Just as a point of information, can we just do standing votes for the, because it seems that people are getting tired and not being loud enough. I mean, the last one seemed clear to a lot of people. If we could just
Okay.
do standing votes moving forward.
Yeah, well, if you have 10 people standing for division, we will do it now. Okay, have a seat. All those in favor of the motion, please stand. We're going to do this counted. Yeah, we're going to do it counted because I'm not sure. This is the proposal as presented. The amendment failed. The amendment already failed. It's what's up on the screen that was presented with advance notice. We're going to do this as a counting vote.
84.
She's voting 84. All those opposed, please stand. And Alicia, if you're voting, you count yourself, right?
One.
11 is my count. 26 is where I left off.
36.
37, 38.
39.
Give me a sec. 84 equals times 2 over 3. Wait, I did that wrong. 84 plus. It would have needed 86 votes to pass, so it failed. Okay, we will go to the next item on the Bylaws Committee report.
All right, recommendation 5, this falls under Bylaw 12 of the Executive Committee. So in 2021, a situation arose in which it was realized the bylaws were a little vague as to the relationship between an at-large alternate and vacancies. So we're vague as to when an at-large alternate on the Executive Committee would be seated in the event of a vacancy on the XCOM. Ronar is also a little vague and unclear when it came to the problem that we had. And as a result of that, in the past when we've had vacancies, we've actually gone both ways, both having them not fill the seat or fill the seat. So we thought it was important that we put in our bylaws what to do when that situation, if or when that situation arises in the future. So this amendment would codify that at-large alternates shall fill the vacancy and be seated on the Executive Committee during its meetings in the event of a vacancy until the Executive Committee is able to elect a replacement to the seat at the next available opportunity. It would most likely be at the same meeting, but I don't want to say that that's a hard set rule. So this would fall under Section 1 of Bylaw 12, Executive Committee, Part D, 2 alternates, each elected for 1-year terms. That makes sense in the context of the rest of it. There will be free substitution of alternates in ranked order at Executive Committee meetings. In the case of vacancies, alternates will fill the vacancy in ranked order until a replacement at-large member is appointed by the XCOM, or Executive Committee. Sorry, I should read the whole thing.
Okay, we go to debate. Against?
I actually want to propose an amendment. I support this idea. I think we have an issue with the wording. So the current proposal says an alternate will fill the vacancy. Well, that terminology usually means there's no more vacancy. You filled it, right? So I think we want to make really clear that this is a temporary condition, which then makes sense with the rest of it until, the XCOM appoints someone to fill it. So my proposal is to amend to strike the phrase, fill the vacancy in ranked order, and instead say, serve in ranked order temporarily. So if adopted, it would be, in the case of vacancies, alternates will serve in ranked order temporarily until a replacement at-large member is appointed by the Executive Committee.
Second.
I need a standing of 18. Okay, we will go to debate on the amendment only. I think you've pretty much already spoken to your amendment, is that correct? Or do you need to speak? Yeah. Is there anybody against the amendment?
Point of clarification, would serve temporarily be better wording?
That's for you guys to decide, but it does appear that it makes sense to me, but I'm not voting, so, you know. Any debate on the amendment? Hearing none, we will go to a vote on the amendment. I think I can do this with a voice vote. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. You guys are getting tired. All those opposed? Well, that was easy. Okay, the amendment, first time today. Okay, so we are now back at discussion on the main motion as amended. Is there any discussion on the main motion as amended? Okay, seeing none, we will go to a vote on the main motion as amended. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Wow. Good job, guys. Good job, first time today. How many more do we have? Okay. Okay, I'm going to ask for a point of personal privilege. I need to pass the gavel for about 5 minutes. I cannot pass it to the vice chair because, okay, it seems to me like people are kind of feeling my pain here. So I'm going to do this. Can we go into recess for 10 minutes? Okay, if there's no objection, we will be recessed for 10 minutes. It's 4 o'clock now. We will come back 4:10 or 4:15 Libertarian time. Let's not push it.
I assume just because you need to go.
You are correct.
Yeah, and I need to go out there. I think she needs a break.
Well, I was going to try to see who I could possibly, maybe Pmrc. I am too, but I got a pee, so I can't answer any questions till I pee.
Lucas, what was? by the way, in case anyone hasn't seen all these proposals and everything, it is online, ca.lp.org/bylaws. The committee report is on there, along with the advance notice reports, several, if not all of which we've already voted on throughout the day. Those are the ones that Aaron Starr has been proposing. But if you haven't read these yet, this would be a good opportunity to read them in advance. Thank you. The current bylaws and convention rules are also on there, as well as past rules. History's fun.
Also, a house cleaning item here. That third of the room, just so that you're aware, on that third of the room over there, where the aisle is past there, at 5 o'clock, all of you have to get out of here quickly. So make sure that your stuff is packed up. The rest of the room, you've got a little bit more time to get out of here. But we have a hard stop at 5. They're going to move that error wall to there and get us ready for the gala. And then we come back in here at 6 o'clock for the chair debate, and it'll be just 2/3 of the room. So if you're in that half of the room, don't leave anything at the tables because it's going away. I'm going to make it multiple times. That's okay.
John, move your shit. All right.
That announcement would be made at least twice, if not 3 more times.
Touche, Rajani. My Attico, right? I always remember because it's like, my Attico, your Attico, this whole courtroom's Attico. That's how it works for me, and I mean, I know it sounds weird, but that's why I remember it. I do too. There's a reason I'm the weirdo that has twice been the chair of this place. You have to be elected. You could be nominated. No, that happens at a future combination. It is pretty technical, though, just so you know. Well, you're getting there, then.
We're not back in order, but I have a question. Does anybody in the room have any Advil? Could I have an Advil, please? Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know, my tea probably isn't helping as much as water would help, but at this point, yes. That's why I keep doing that, because I've got like... Thank you so much.
Either you can or I can. Please announce when we're getting ready to adjourn at 1/3 of the room so that people take their stuff, blah, 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 they leave. Thank you. I'm sure you were going to do it anyways, but I just wanted to remind you because a lot has happened.
No, I appreciate you reminding me, because I probably would have forgotten. And if I start to do it without saying that,
Really good thing.
say, maybe? But I thought we were closer to being done, but there's 6 more proposals. So,
But I mean, that means we continue them tomorrow morning.
maybe. What did I do with my, oh, no, oh. I have to actually say I'm proud of myself. I have not lost my phone yet this convention. I usually lose it several times.
It is time.
I know. But I know Libertarians, and it's going to be 4:20. I know it's time, but I know Libertarians, and it's going to be 4:20.
Could start getting
I know. Hey, everybody. It's been 10 minutes. So if we could start funneling back in, because right now I don't even think we have quorum. What is it for quorum again? It's just whatever. Yeah, we don't have 90 people in the room. My what? I know. Yes, ma'am. Has everybody, can you bring up any of the platinum packages? Any of these that are perhaps? Okay, you guys, we're getting close.
Can I move your purse?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, if everybody could start funneling back in the room. I think we do have quorum, but I know that there's more people out there. And I had a feeling that Libertarian time would mean that it wouldn't be 4:10, or if it's 4:15, it would be 4:20. But okay, we definitely have quorum, so we can go on. I'm going to call the meeting back. We're out of recess at 4:15. Back in order. We will go to the next proposal for the Bylaws Committee report. No, I'm going to make an announcement. I just wanted these to see how many people.
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Yeah, you can take the paper.
Scrolling through the wrong PDF. Nice. Recommendation 6, bylaw 9, 59. I said that no work.
Okay, are you ready?
I'm
Okay.
Do you want your phone? You'll be back up here.
I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah. All right, so getting back to business. If I could get some less crosstalk and chatter, please. Thank you. It's hard to hear up here. All right, recommendation 6, bylaw 9. I'm just going to shout over you. County organizations. So this amendment would replace the existing language in section 2 of bylaw 9. The change would give county parties more flexibility in deciding who is eligible to be a county central committee member and how those members are selected. It adds the option, but not the requirement. Please pay attention to that. It adds the option, but not the requirement to elect county central committee members during a statewide primary election or at a caucus or convention. That's county caucus or county convention. County central committees can keep their current membership eligibility requirements or selection process. This change would give county organizations more freedom to improve the party's representation at the local level and engage with libertarian voters. It would give county central committees the freedom to decide whether or not they want to allow all registered libertarians to directly participate in the selection of party representatives at the county level. So like an actual election. In addition, the Libertarian Party of California has agreed to adhere to the Peace and Freedom Party section of the California Election Code, sections 7700 through 7884. This change brings our County Central Committee selection process more in line with those rules. The first paragraph in the proposed change uses some of the language found in the Elections Code, which was adopted by other qualified political parties. Regarding the selection of County Central Committee members, the link there is to the Elections Code. If this is the first time you're seeing it, I don't think you'll have time to really peruse it. The impact, but it is there if you want to see it. The impact would be that this proposal would have no impact on the way state central committee members are selected or defined. It may impact who can qualify as a county central committee member or how those members are selected in counties where the county organization chooses to change their current requirements or selection process. So as it's on the screen there. This would strike the current text in section 2 of bylaw 9 and replace it with the following. A county central committee, in accordance with the rules and regulations adopted by that committee, may select its county central committee members in a statewide direct primary election by holding a caucus or convention or by using any other method of selection approved by the county central committee. State central committee membership shall be one of the requirements for membership on a county central committee, which is as it currently is. A state central committee member may be a member of only one county central committee. A county central committee member shall not be a registrant of or hold office in any political party other than the Libertarian Party. A county central committee may establish additional eligibility requirements for county central committee membership. And yes, does that change with the one we just did?
Whose napkin is this?
Oh, that's
Okay.
it's just
Okay. All right. So that is the motion. We will go to debate. We will start with against. Yes, sir.
Could somebody tell me the proviso about where it says approved selection by the county central committee? Does that include using the registrar of voters or the county clerk's election?
If my understanding of this would be, it would be up to each county central committee to determine if they wanted to do that.
Okay, so we would force the taxpayers to pay for our election of our county central
If
committee.
if an individual, my understanding is if an individual county decided to do this, it would in fact use the state's voter
Thank you.
election process.
If you're a candidate for partisan office, you're automatically listed as a candidate for a county central committee. And they only print those if there are more people running than there are seats according to the county election code. You get 5 seats or whatever, less than we can do. But all candidates will automatically be elected to the Central Committee.
Okay, that was a point of clarification on the election code, I take it, so, thank you. Okay, so now we're starting with against.
Okay, I want to speak in opposition to this, thus I'm at the against microphone. When I'm writing a bylaw proposal, I try to ask myself, all right, obviously I think this is good policy when maybe my faction or whatever it has a majority or close to a majority, right? But if the other faction had majority, would I still think it was good policy? And if I can't answer that question yes, then it's probably bad policy. So your policy needs to be a good policy regardless of shifts in internal control. And what I don't like about this is that it creates disparities between counties for what the standards are for if you can be a county member. It's not the same everywhere. And all it takes is one county to say, all right, we're going to add an additional eligibility requirement that you must be in the immediate family of whoever's chair right now. They change the rules, and you're locked forever. That county, those are the only people eligible to be members of the county, right? So I can't go for that. The striking of the first sentence, that state county membership, state central committee membership shall be the only requirement for county membership is fairly crucial to me. And I think this is going to lead to local warlord battles and a lot more division than you already have in a political party naturally. So I want same standards statewide.
Somebody speaking in favor?
So these changes pretty much mirror the state's election code regarding county central committee elections that every other political party uses except for ours. It brings us more in line with better representation of Libertarian voters and giving county central committees the option to give those voters a voice in central committee leadership, either through a primary election or holding caucuses or county conventions. So I think this is a definite improvement by letting counties better represent Libertarian voters and involving them in the process at a local level.
Okay. Against?
I don't think that conformity with the elections code is a good argument for this. Some of you may recall that back in 1989, we were part of a lawsuit against the Secretary of State to overturn these sorts of rules so that we could run our own party the way we want to. So basically, the wording that's in this statute today is actually a dead letter as applied to us. So you're not doing yourself any favors by saying, well, let's just follow the state's rules now, when we won a lawsuit that said that we didn't have to. We could set up our own rules. So that's number one. Number two, this is just a really bad idea because, and we're seeing evidence of this sort of thing across the country. For example, recently we had an issue with Delaware. Delaware decided to change its rules without giving notice and make it so that only their friends basically could be members of the party. Thankfully, the Judicial Committee, the National Judicial Committee, was able to overturn that, but only because they didn't follow their own, the state party didn't follow their own rules in making those changes. They could have actually, there was actually a way that they could have done that. Now, we're having the same situation in Massachusetts, where they just decided to get rid of, 50 some odd people just because they were part of a particular caucus. You don't want to create those sorts of, this could cause a real problem for any of you if you're ever on the outside if you're ever on the outside. You have to be an insider. You don't want a situation where somebody can literally say, you know what, in order to join the Central Committee, you have to be approved by the Board of Directors of the Central Committee. That's just, you've completely iced yourself out of the political process if you allowed this to be adopted. Years ago, we adopted language that made it certain that if you were a state Central Committee member, you were automatically a county Central Committee member. We put that in as a protection so that you couldn't have some rogue faction, some fiefdom in a county, overturn that and deprive you of your rights. Don't deprive yourself of your rights. Vote this down.
And just for a point of clarification, that was 2 minutes for the speaker, not 2 minutes. Okay. All right, somebody in favor.
Dr. Olson, Kings County. Once again, I find myself opposed to Ms. Purcell and Mr. Starr on an issue on the bylaws, which actually is more rare than you might think. But yeah, I get their points. I totally understand their perspective. I would say that that's not something that we see happening, at least on other political party central committees in the state of California. But I understand the concern there. What I will say is, Justin Amash today during his speech talked about how we should decentralize. That should be a focus. How we should be more of a bottom-up organization. What this does is allows each county to come up with their own guidelines on how they will manage their county affairs. This takes away the power, the authority of the state party in determining what the structure is of those county organizations. So that's the big reason that I support this.
Okay, somebody that's speaking against.
First, just to reiterate what several other people have said, we are not asking to be governed by the state. We shouldn't be asking to be governed by the state. The fact that people are talking about the peace and freedom rules, and well, we agreed to that, we should follow them. We only agreed to that because they said, you've got to pick one. You've got to be Democrat, follow the Democrats' rules, the Republicans' rules, or American Independent, or peace and freedom, and we had to give them some answer. So we gave them an answer, and then we said, we're not going to follow those, and we should keep doing that. And the court said, we don't have to follow them. That's not a good reason to do this. Second, as far as giving counties flexibility of how they manage themselves, that's not what this is about. The sentence is still going to be in there saying that it's a requirement to be a county central committee member, that you have to be a state central committee member. Right now, everybody who's a state central committee member is a county central committee member. This is not about flexibility. This is about restriction. This is taking people who would be allowed to vote now and say, oh no, maybe if you don't get enough votes in the primary, you can't vote anymore. This is really a voting limitation thing. And if a county wants to organize itself in a more specialized way, to have certain people have certain additional powers, the way they do that is they have an organization defined in their bylaws. They can have an executive committee, they can have other structures. But we should leave the basic voting ability open to everybody who meets the basic qualifications. What about giving all those registered libertarians more of a say? If they want to say, they can join the party. They can sign them a certification, they can pay their dues, and then they get the same say that we all have now. This is a solution looking for a problem. There's nothing being fixed here except if you want to have fewer people participating in the vote as voting members.
Okay. Somebody speaking in favor?
Can I speak again on it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the argument that this is somehow giving the state control over our membership is not valid because California Election Code already says that political parties can operate based on their own internal bylaws. So that argument is pretty much not valid because I believe that the reason that was added to the election code is because of that lawsuit that was spoken of previously. So actually what this does is actually, lets us operate a little bit more like a political party that represents local libertarians and gets libertarians involved in the process, similar to how other political parties operate, rather than operating more like a social club with a pay-to-play structure.
Somebody speaking against?
Yes, I second everything Joe Dean said. I only want to add that if you look at the state election code, you will still find that we are theoretically operating under the rules of peace and freedom despite the court order, because the court judgment did not cause that to be eliminated from the election code. So any reference to the election code is really bogus. Thanks.
Okay, is there anybody else speaking in favor? Yes, sir.
Gene Strasper, Riverside County Chairman. I may not be in complete agreement with the wording, but in theory, I completely 100% support this. We are a political party, not a sandbox bunch of political LARPers, which is a lot of you are trying to do. We are a political party. We need to learn to train our members to learn how to go out on the streets, gather signatures, get on the ballot. It's the most fundamental process of a political party. By doing this, you're saying, nah. Give the county parties some flexibility, give us some autonomy, let it be a laboratory, an experiment. Let's see which counties can thrive and which ones fail just on the merits of this. But in theory, I support it, and I think everybody should support this if we really want to be a political party. And we are under state rules, so let's stop that nonsense saying, oh, we don't want to be under rules. The fact that we're a ballot qualified party means, excuse me, I've got a little bit of a blood sugar thing going on right now. But we are under the rules of the state. We've got to get rid of this fantasy. So please support it, whether it's the way it's written or somehow modified. I don't care, but we need to move forward on this.
Okay, against?
Yeah. I want us to get there. I do. And I would support this in the future, but I don't believe we're there yet, and here's why. Our CRM is very top-heavy, and county affiliates and XCOMs do not have the access to it that they need to help them actually run professional organizations yet. You've got to duplicate the work by having your own CRM. Most of our county XCOMs have at least a handful of people on them who don't even know how to use our CRM. We don't have proper internal marketing, so county affiliates and chairs don't actually have all the resources and tools they need to make something like this come to fruition and run successfully yet. And that's really important. I want us to get there, but we have got to step up our game internally before we start taking on more responsibilities and stacking ourselves up for failure. What I want to see is us succeed and become a better organization, then do something like this and be very high quality professionals. But the reality is we are not there yet. We are not the level of professionalism that we need in order to actually pull this off.
Is there anybody else speaking in favor? Okay, you've spoken several times, so I am going to let the against speak because he...
Matthew Butts, Kern County, I'm calling the question.
I apologize, but is there any objection to ending debate? Okay, hearing none, we are going to go to a vote on this. All those in favor of the amendment as proposed, please stand. We're not going to count yet, we're just going to stand. Okay, all those opposed, you guys sit down. Okay, the motion fails. We will go to the next one. The time right now is about 4:35, so I'm just going to make a real quick announcement. At 5 o'clock, we have to stop, and at 5 o'clock, they're going to come in and they're going to close the air wall right here. So, at 5 o'clock, if you're sitting over there, the air wall is going to close, and you're going to be over there. That's not good. Also, at 5 o'clock, those tables are going to be all removed, so don't leave anything on your table if you're in that section, because that part of the room is going to be turned for our banquet, and then turned back in the morning. But one of the things they're not going to do is take your stuff off and put it back on. So don't leave anything on the table. And one last thing is any cameras that are set up over there, you'll probably want to move. The wall will close and you'll have time to move them, but I'm just giving everybody the heads up. That is what's going to happen. What? We're going to be done, but I'm just letting you know that at 5 o'clock that wall is closing. So we're done with business at 5. The wall's closing. Don't leave stuff over there. Also, as another announcement, a lot of people have not picked up their packages for either platinum or the dinners. So if you are planning on going to the dinner, you're going to need to pick this stuff up because you have to have your ticket to get dinner. So we can deal with that after, but now we will go to the next bylaws proposal. Yes. Okay, after we close business, talk to, she's got stuff for the auction. Can they talk to you? If anybody here has stuff for the auction, talk to our executive director, Mr. Ferreira. Okay.
All right, recommendation 7. This also affects bylaw 12 over the executive committee. It also addresses bylaw 14 regarding the judicial committee. Presently, there is no specified period of membership to be eligible to be an officer, executive committee member, or judicial committee member of the party. And just to clarify, officer means chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. There is a concern that this allows for the possibility of members with too limited experience in the party to be elected to these positions. This bylaws amendment would ensure that officers and area coordinators have been a member of the party for a period of at least 1 year, that all other executive committee members have been members of the party for at least 90 days, which is already the membership requirement, and that judicial committee members have been members of the party for at least 4 years consecutively or non-consecutively. This would create a new Section 9 to Bylaw 12 and a new Section 10 to Bylaw 14. And those changes read, so under Bylaw 12, Executive Committee, this adds Section 9 regarding eligibility. To be eligible to serve on the Executive Committee, members shall meet the following qualifications. 1, to serve as an officer or, sorry, I'm getting tired too. 1, to serve as an officer or as an area coordinator. 1 shall have been a state central committee member for any 12-month period prior to being elected or appointed. And 2, to serve as an at-large member or alternate at-large member. 1 shall have been a central committee member, state central committee member for any 90-day period prior to being elected or appointed. And then also bylaw 14, the new section 10, also regarding eligibility. In order to be eligible to serve as a judicial committee member, 1 shall have been a state central committee member for an amount of time totaling at least 48 months prior to being elected or appointed.
Thank you, and I'm gonna, before we go to debate, I am gonna make one more announcement I forgot. For national delegate nominations, they need to be with the secretary by close of business today, which is gonna be at 5 o'clock, like I just mentioned. So if you haven't done that, you'll need to do that quickly, although there is still nominations from the floor. You'd like to speak in opposition?
I'd like to let Dr. Olson go first, if that's possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
We will start with 4 instead.
All right, Dr. Olson, Kings County. So the reason that I support this proposal is that I love all the new members that are coming, and it's very exciting to have new members come and want to participate and be involved. But when it comes to the leadership of the state party, I think it's very important that we have leaders who are experienced and know the history and have been involved in the party for a little while to know the history and the goings-on and the people involved. And, you know, so I don't think that it's unrealistic to expect somebody who is being elected as an officer of the state party or an area coordinator to have been a member for a year. And I don't think that it's unrealistic for somebody who's running for at-large, somebody who's wanting to be in that position, to have been a member at least 90 days. You're required to do that to even vote in this convention. So, I think that's a realistic expectation. And the most important, potentially, body that we elect is the Judicial Committee. Those people should be people who have been seasoned and know the party's history and know the background, and these people should have been involved in the party for a long time. So I think a 4-year period is a reasonable expectation for somebody to have been involved in the party before they're elected to the Judicial Committee. We don't want somebody who's been a member of the party for a day to be on the Judicial Committee. And under the current rules, that could happen. And I think it's kind of silly. And I think it's strange that there's opposition to this, but we'll see.
Okay, now we can go to,
Hello, everybody. Michael Lima, Alameda County. I would like to call the question.
okay. Is there objection to calling the question?
Of course there is.
Okay. It's been objected to. This requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. All those in favor, please stand up. Okay, be seated. All those opposed? Okay, the question's been called. We have ended debate. We will go to a vote on this motion. All those in favor? Let's try this. All those in favor, please stand up. Okay, you can be seated. All those opposed? Okay, it fails to get a 2/3 majority. It fails. That will bring us to the next proposal on the Bylaws Committee report. And I believe this will likely be the last because we've got 17 minutes left.
Point of information.
Yes, sir.
Since you said the balloting for the National Convention delegates needs to be in by 5 o'clock, could you explain the voting procedure, how many votes you may cast?
This is not the voting. This is for nominations. Voting
Oh.
happens tomorrow.
Thank you.
This is just simply if you have nominations for national delegates that were not on that list that I nominated all those people, please put that up here for the secretary. She needs that by close of business, which is 5 o'clock.
Sorry. All right, so recommendation 8, this is regarding Bylaw 24, National Convention delegates, and also Convention Rule 10. Unless there's any objection, I'm not going to read the whole reason here word for word. I'm just going to kind of summarize, if that's okay. All right, so as we are aware, because Mimi said it during her chair report this morning, to be your own region, you have to have at least 10% of the vote, 10% of the national party membership, which is why those of you that were around remember why we were making all the phone calls and emails and everything to get people to sign up to be national members so they could be part of that 10%, so we could be our own region. So the gist of this proposal is, and then you can read the reasoning in there for the specific statistics of how the national bylaws determines delegate allocations. So the impact of this proposal would be that this proposal would require members who wish to be delegates to the National Convention to be members of both the national and state party, because in order to get our seats, we need you to be members of the national party to begin with, so it helps us out. So Bylaw 24, Section 1, delegates to National Convention shall be selected at the state convention, preceding the National Convention is what we're doing tomorrow. Delegates shall be state central committee members in good standing, and in order to represent the party at the National Convention, all delegates must have been a bylaw-sustaining member, BSM, of the national party no later than the last day of the 7th month prior to the regular National Convention. This requirement for being a national member may be suspended by the California delegates at the National Convention with a 2/3 vote. Sorry, there's more to it. All right, and then underneath our convention rule 10, I'm just gonna read that paragraph that changes. State convention, or that's true enough. National Convention delegate nomination shall begin immediately following the call to order, which is what we've been doing throughout the day. Party officers shall be automatically nominated as National Convention delegates by reason of their official status within the party. State convention delegates shall only nominate and elect members who qualify to be a delegate in accordance with Bylaw 24, which is the above. Later on, it changes, additional nominations may be made from the floor of nominees who are members who are eligible and who confirm etc., instead of in good standing. So in good standing becomes eligible. Those are the changes here. I apologize if I kind of skimmed through that, but nobody wants to hear me talk about it, I assume.
It's a long one, and it's been on the website for a long time, 90 days. Okay, we will start with those that are opposed.
Madam Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, sir.
If this proposal passes, would it affect those right now currently who are not national members? Because I believe it says 7 months, and our convention is in May.
Okay, so it would, so I have a suggestion that somebody might want to make an amendment to do this as a proviso that it takes effect at the end of this convention.
That's exactly what I was going to motion. Could I motion that the proviso be attached to this effect, future cohorts of national delegates, and not those selected tomorrow by the close of business of this convention?
Thank you. And just as a point, I know that that was the intention of the committee. However, again, they had that other bylaw, so they didn't put it in. So the motion has been made to amend the bylaw to add the proviso that this, if passed, would go into effect at the end of convention, therefore not affecting tomorrow.
Point of information,
Yes, ma'am.
when you join the National Party, it's annually. So no matter when you pay your dues and join, it's for 2022.
No.
And if you paid last year's for 2021.
No.
On my card says I'm a member in 2022 because I paid my dues this year.
Okay, I'm taking that as a point of information, and that is incorrect. It does matter that you have to be sure that you are a bylaw sustaining member on the last day of the 7th month prior to the convention. So in this last time, it was all members that were BSMs, which is slightly different than just being a member. You might still be a member, but if you haven't given money to the state party, National Party in the last 365 days prior to that deadline, you are not a BSM. You might still be considered a member, but a BSM is different. It's very specific, and that's what they use for delegate allocation as well as region representation. So that's to her point of information. We are now at you made the amendment. We are speaking only on, nope. All those that would like to second that amendment, please stand. We need 18 people standing. For the proviso, this is the proviso to make it happen at the end of the convention instead of tomorrow. Okay, we've got 18 people, and I would like to thank you for those 18, because if it happens now, it's going to be a huge nightmare. Sorry, I shouldn't have editorialized. Okay, would you like to speak for 30 seconds to your amendment?
I would, thank you. May I be recognized?
Yes, you've got 30 seconds.
Thank you. I just wanted to quote nobody in particular, point out that this would be a huge nightmare. If it did pass for tomorrow instead of for at the end of business, we'd have to disqualify a number of people already nominated. That would be a big hassle. The other thing, of course, though, I think is a fairness issue. Just the fact that this notice, 90 days out from this convention, isn't actually meeting the 7-month, as far as I know, the 7-month deadline. Certainly people were not notified of this passing, even if it does pass, 7 months in advance of the national convention. That seems to me like it doesn't give people the right chance to be delegates, even if they're very devoted to the convention, very devoted to the Libertarian Party. And I think in the interest of fairness, at least this cohort should be able to get through without this rule affecting them.
Are you speaking?
Against the proviso motion.
Okay, well, raising your hand doesn't get you there faster. Okay, somebody speaking in favor.
So I was going to speak in favor of the original motion in the first place, but I also want to speak in favor of the proviso. I agree. Obviously, it's going to be a nightmare if we pass this without that proviso. I think the proviso was probably intended to have been put in there initially as per my recollection of the meetings, but I'm not going to make a big issue of that. So I think that it's important that we add that proviso now.
Okay, You're speaking against the proviso.
Right, because it actually doesn't accomplish what you want to accomplish. Because what will happen is at the close of the convention, tomorrow, when this goes into effect, a lot of the folks that you just selected to be delegates will then become ineligible. So what you want to do is you want the proviso to become effective upon the opening of the next convention. That would assure, that would actually assure, and I'm going to make a motion to substitute or amend the proviso so that it goes into effect at the commencement of the next convention.
That's a point well taken. And is there a standing second? To be clear, what that would do is it would not affect any of the elections that happen tomorrow. It would go into effect at the next convention, which would be well in advance of the 7 months required. Are there 18 people that would like to stand and second that? Okay, we've got 18. So now we are too deep. We are on debate of the amendment to the amendment.
Actually, point of order.
Yes, sir.
I don't believe the way I phrased it originally was close of business tomorrow. I think that was something a phrase that you provided, but what I actually said was that it shouldn't affect the selection or performance of the duties of this cohort selected for 2022. So I was hoping that language would include the same concern.
No, and I understand what you're saying, and yes, I did say that, and then but you didn't do it specifically to what he did, which is the next convention, which I think does make a difference.
Can I
personally.
withdraw my motion with unanimous consent then to only have his amendment on the floor?
It's being amended right now, so just vote for the amendment.
Okay, all right. Is there any further discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment to the amendment, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, it passes. Now we are back on discussion of the amendment as amended.
I call the question on the amendment to the amendment.
No, the amendment as amended.
I call the question on the proviso.
As amended. Okay. Is there any objection to ending debate on the proviso as amended? Hearing none, all those in favor of the previous proviso as amended, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. It passes, so now we're on to debate of the main motion as amended with the proviso that's been amended. I think we're at 4, so I'm going to go with somebody speaking in favor.
Gary Alstead, Orange County, I call the question.
Nobody has had a chance to speak against this. You've only had amendments. There's never been nobody has spoken against this.
Okay. Is there objection to ending debate?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
All those in favor of ending debate, please stand up. What? I don't think it is, but... Okay, all those opposed, please stand up. I don't believe it got the 2/3 required, so I believe that we are still in debate.
So Joe Dean, Santa Clara County. I have two kinds of problems with this. One is kind of technical, and that is I don't think our bylaws should be reaching into the national bylaws and picking out particular details that might change at any time. Things like when that's 7 months before the national convention, that's something in the national bylaws that could change. It also can vary in effect to us relative to our convention because our convention moves around during the spring. The national convention can happen during different times of the year. So people are imagining this, oh, it looks so nicely in November. It might not be that way. Also, we heard that there are two kinds of national membership. There's this bylaws sustaining membership, and there's the one that all the members know about, what the national party tells them whether they're members or not. Those are two separate things. That's a minor technicality of the national bylaws. The concept bylaws suspending member, that phrase doesn't even exist in the national bylaws. That's an invention of the national office, of something they put in a report. But my more basic objection is we've got to get away from this idea of building our membership based on arbitrary deadlines. We should build our membership. We should build membership because people want to support us, because they want to be active, because we have campaigns that bring them in. Those of you who see my messages on Facebook, every couple of months I post a graph of our membership. What do you think happens when we put in a rule like this? Our membership goes sharply up, and then it goes down. And then it goes, oops, and then it goes down. That's not the pattern we need to see. We need to see up and up and up. We should be building membership month in, month out, all year. And we shouldn't, this crazy that we even need a rule like this. California is 12% of the population. It should be a breeze for us to meet that 10% threshold, just if we were doing our job as activists, bringing in people. This is like a silly Band-Aid that shouldn't be necessary. We should just do our jobs, bring people into the party, and we don't need any of this nonsense.
Okay, next somebody speaking for.
Dr. Olson, Kings County. I think this makes sense to do this because, first of all, members of our state party don't affect our delegation size for the national convention. And so this would help us maintain our delegation size. It would help us maintain having our own regional representative on the LNC. I think this is an important thing to consider. And I get it, we should be growing our membership all the time. But this would be one of those things that if you want to go to the national convention and be a delegate, this would be one of those things that would help you make that decision to help the party get the advantage of having more delegates and having maybe even more than one representative on the LNC. I mean, sure, 10% is an easy threshold, it should be, but why not reach for 20%? I mean.
Okay, where are we at on time on this motion? Okay. On the 15 minutes? I don't think so, because we did. Okay, here's the deal. We've got to finish in 2 minutes.
I plan on calling the question and making a motion to adjourn.
You don't need to make the motion to adjourn because it's already in, that's the next item.
So call the question and then we can adjourn?
The question's been called. Is there any objection to calling the question? Hearing none, we're going to go to a vote on the main motion with the proviso that was amended to go into effect at the end of the next state convention. At the beginning of the state, yes. The beginning of, that would make no sense to do it at the end, would it now? At the beginning of this, well, actually, it wouldn't matter. Never mind. Okay, does everybody know what they're voting on? All those in favor of this motion, please say aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion fails. It is now 4:59. So we are done for the day because we had a hard stop that was announced at 5 o'clock. Please remove your stuff from over there. They're going to close the thing. We come back tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, just so everybody knows. 8 o'clock is when business starts tomorrow.
Madam Chair,
Yeah?
may I share a quick word with the members?
What?
May I share something with the members quickly about the upcoming event for affiliates?
Yes.
Yes, so in 10 minutes, we're going to be starting an event for county leaders in the Lindbergh rooms, Lindbergh 1 and 2. It's 2 doors down, take a right, it's right across from where lunch was. Someone mentioned earlier, it's time for us to get our act together. That's what this is about, sharing best practices, sharing what works, learning about what we can do to be the best we can as county organizations. I hope I'll see you there, and we will finish 5 minutes before the chair debate, so you'll be able to be back here for the chair debate.
Hey, real quick, guys.
I'm one of the national organizers for the Libertarian Party Veteran Caucus. If you are a veteran and want to get involved, please let me know. We are not focusing on in-party politics. We're only focusing on veteran issues and getting veterans elected that are libertarian leaning. So if you want to talk to me about that, come find me or Ben Weir and come grab a Libertarian Party Veteran Caucus ribbon. Thank you guys.